Chapter 983. Wung and Song asked again. Then where do we go from here? How long will it take to get there? Huzi did not slow down and replied without hesitation. If we walk straight ahead for about 25 miles, we will reach the neighboring county's Maji town. If my dad and I go hunting in the mountains, we can reach there in about 5 to 6 hours. But Master Wung, you're not familiar with the roads in the mountains, and we are carrying a person. I estimate that it will take at least 8 hours to reach Maji town. Wung and Song thought for a while. We are not afraid of wild beasts. We have 3 guns, but the person we are carrying, he wanted to let them leave the sack here, but he was reluctant to do so. It wasn't that he was worried that Jiang Yage would die here. He didn't care about Jiang Yage's life or death at all. It was just that he had spent so much effort today and alarmed so many people. So far, he hadn't even had a sip of soup before leaving Jiang Yage here, which made him feel very uncomfortable. Let her come down and walk by herself. Why does she have to carry it? She saves energy, but I am tired. Another person who was carrying the sack with Huzi said while panting. Wung and Song squeezed the gun in his hand and thought that it made sense. That's true. Shilu wanted to hit Wung and Song the moment she was put down, but the black muzzle was pointed at her head. Wung and Song said coldly, "You are messing around. Why don't you try again?" Shilu froze on the spot. Her adrenaline was still stimulating the top of her head, but her remaining rationality told her that the man in front of her might really shoot. I'm still young. I cannot die here. I must think of a way to survive. Shilu stopped fooling around. Instead, she turned her head and looked around. She knew from the beginning that these people had already brought her into the mountain. As far as she could see, the mountain was pitch black. I will pretend to walk with them, and when they're not paying attention, I will turn around and run deep into the dark mountains. Maybe I can escape. If I really can't escape, and these people want to use force, I will fight with them, even if I am killed in one shot. But now, I cannot give up until the last moment. I won't mess around. Shilu forced herself to calm down, and then pretended to be timid as she replied. Actually, she didn't need to pretend. She was really scared at this moment. It's good that you're sensible. Let's go. Follow in front. Dang and Song grinned smugly. Seeing that she was so obedient, he thought of Jiang Yage's cold and aloof demeanor at the banquet yesterday. Now, she was like a frightened rabbit, and he felt a strange sense of accomplishment. As for Chun Guang, he carried Jiang Yage on his back and walked back the way they came. In less than 2 minutes, they passed by the hotel in the scenic area, which was now in a mess. At this moment, the assistant director was leading a group of people to make a scene at the hotel, accusing the hotel management of being irresponsible. Who would dare to come up and kidnap someone? The hotel knew that there was definitely a mole among their own people, but they couldn't catch the mole in such a short time. The people that Wang Song found were all local gangsters, and they were familiar with the hotel's layout. They ran out of the fire escape after kidnapping the people, and the hotel didn't notice anything at all. Of course, even if they found out, if the mole revealed his identity, the hotel wouldn't be able to do anything to Wang Song and his group. They had been acting like tyrants in Baishui County for a long time. Jiang Yage, who was lying on Chen Guang's back, saw the commotion and asked, "Should we go over and help?" Chen Guang shook his head. "No, the police will deal with it when they arrive. These are all small matters. We just need to save the people first. Turn off the flashlight." "Why? Isn't it because we can't see the road?" Jiang Yage didn't understand. Chen Guang patted her butt. "Actually, the flashlight is for you to light the way. I don't need to look." "Why?" "I practice Kung Fu to support night vision." In this regard, Chen Guang really wasn't bragging. There were more than 400,000 kinds of martial arts in Zhenwujie. Among them, there were no less than 10,000 that strengthened eyesight. After coming out to the real world, although the power of his martial arts was weakened due to the weakening of Yin and Yang Qi, he was able to use his eyes to see the road clearly with the help of the weak starlight and moonlight in the sky. It was no different from daytime. Jiang Yage didn't believe it at first. After trying to turn off the flashlight for more than a minute, Chen Guang was still walking as if he was flying. He wasn't affected at all. "You really have night vision? What else? Do you think I'm bragging?" 360-degree soft night vision illuminates your beauty. Stop talking nonsense. We are in a hurry to save people. I didn't slow down. Didn't you notice that we were almost flying? Shen Guang really wasn't joking. At this time, under the burst of his internal strength, he could cover more than 10 meters in a step. However, most of his strength was used to push forward. He didn't raise his height much, so Jiang Yage didn't feel it was obvious. The two of them ran forward for nearly 10 minutes. They arrived at the place where Nam Yun Kang and his group abandoned the car before the armed police and police. They saw two SUVs parked on the side of the road. Chen Guang touched the hood of the Overlord. It's still hot. The engine has been off for almost half an hour. Jiang Yage was surprised. How do you know? Chen Guang didn't explain to her. It would be complicated if he explained it. As the invincible god of racing, he was familiar with the performance of all the cars in the world. The Overlord was a large SUV that sold well. Chen Guang was even more familiar with it. He was very familiar with the structure of the car. When the engine was working, the speed at which the heat dissipated after the engine was off. He had a basic idea of the temperature of the car when the engine was running. His guess in half an hour might not be completely accurate, but it was close. Then, where did they escape to? Jiang Yage turned her head and looked around. She felt that both sides of the road were dense forests. It was so quiet that there wasn't any sense of direction. Should I call the police? Jiang Yage asked again. Chen Guang shook his head. No need. I know where they went. I also know that Shi Lu is being carried by someone. How did you know? Chen Guang slapped her, but heavily again. Don't ask so many whys. Are you 100,000 whys or something? Say them first. Chase. All right, that's true. Chen Guang turned around and carried Jiang Yage into the forest. He didn't slow down at all. After 2 or 3 steps, thunder roared in the sky. In an instant, bean-sized raindrops poured down. Even though the leaves were dense, it couldn't stop them for a moment. In less than 30 seconds, large droplets of water began to patter down on the mountain forest. Jiang Yage was still lying on top of Chen Guang, her chest pressed tightly against his back. The sky and earth were filled with the pitter-patter of the heavy rain, but Jiang Yage's heart was exceptionally calm. This was because she realized that no matter how heavy the rain was, or how heavy the raindrops were, they couldn't land on her. The large raindrops passed through the forest and fell from the sky. However, they would always explode about 3 feet above her and Chen Guang's head, and then turn into water that flowed in all directions. It was as if there was a transparent umbrella above their heads. This must be some kind of kung fu of his. It was really amazing. This is bad. As the two of them ran, Chen Guang suddenly stopped in his tracks. What's wrong? The ground is a little soft. Previously, when Wound Song and his group passed by, they more or less left some footprints. Now that the rain is too heavy, I'm afraid that their footprints will be washed away soon. Chen Guang frowned as he stared ahead. His speed had unknowingly slowed down, and it was getting harder and harder to distinguish the footprints. Then what should we do? Jiang Yage said anxiously. Chen Guang put her down. Come down first. I'll think of a way. As he spoke to Jiang Yage, Chen Guang looked up at the sky. It was a pity that he hadn't learned how to track and capture special agents. If he had known that this would happen, he would have looked for Dai Quan, the leader of Xinqing clan, to learn some skills. At this moment, he wanted to make a last-minute effort, but the Holy Grail was left in the satchel at the side of the tent. It was a good idea to wait for the police here. Maybe they had police dogs, but it would take an hour to drive from the county to this location, and it would take at least an hour for them to catch up with him and Jiang Yage. Chen Guang couldn't wait any longer. What he was afraid of now was that once Wound Song realized that the pursuers were too strong, he would simply kill them. Although he had many tricks up his sleeve, he couldn't snatch a life from the hands of the King of Hell. It would be too unjust to let Shi Lu die just like that. Jiang Yage didn't know what he was planning, but seeing his solemn expression, she didn't dare to disturb him. Chen Guang wrinkled his nose and slightly relaxed his power. He let a drop of rainwater the size of a bean fall on his fingertip and looked down at the rainwater. The air was filled with the sour smell of dried branches and rotten leaves after being soaked in rainwater. but it was mixed with the fragrance of plants. Chen Guang smelled a different and familiar smell from this smell. The rainwater that was wrapped by his inner strength floated on his fingertip, and there was a different light that only he could see. On the whole earth, there had always been yin and yang qi that was infinitely similar to the yin and yang qi in the realm of true martial arts. However, it was so thin that it was almost undetectable, but it was of a higher realm. As for this kind of aura, there was actually no clear name in the real world. Those who cultivated their inner strength at sunrise or midday would call it the essence of the sun. People who practiced inner strength in the middle of the night would call it the essence of the moon or the essence of the moon, and so on. People who practiced inner strength in the middle of the night would call it the essence of the moon or the essence of the moon, and so on. In Wenwen's painting volume, it was called the righteous qi of the heaven and earth. People who practiced martial arts accumulated inner qi, breathed in and out, communicated with heaven and earth, and used it as the foundation and source to accumulate inner strength. In addition to the inner qi in the Dantian, there are these different names, but the essence was exactly the same essence of heaven and earth. Otherwise, why did so many people like to practice in the beautiful mountains and forests, but make slow progress in the urban forest composed of steel and concrete? Even the one family, who had the art of stealing heaven, built their headquarters in the secret realm of the Wen family, which was rarely visited by people. As a martial arts museum, Chen Guang had felt the more straightforward yin and yang qi in the realm of true martial arts. After he came out of the realm of true martial arts, he generally classified it as essence of the spirit. However, this essence of the spirit was not the essence of the Xinxia stories, but referred to the spirit of outstanding people, the spirit of heaven and earth, and the spirit of all things. One spirit gave birth to Tai Chi. Tai Chi gave birth to Yin and Yang. Yin and Yang gave birth to the 4 phases, and the 4 phases gave birth to the 8 trigrams, and so on. According to Chen Guang's understanding, essence of the spirit was all-encompassing and covered a wide range of things. It could be the inner strength accumulated in the body when a martial artist practiced inner strength, or it could be the fresh air that ordinary people breathed in to strengthen their bodies. At this moment, the air that Chen Guang was smelling was hidden under all kinds of smells, but it was a wisp of essence of the spirit. He had occasionally felt it before, but he had never understood it as clearly as he did now. This meant that the concentration of essence of the spirit had increased at least twice as much as before. As for the glow in the water droplets on his fingertips, it belonged to another kind of power, a higher level power. It was the power of the Holy Grail released by his heavenly Holy Grail. This power was purer and more original, and even made the supernatural ability of the earth burner in his body more active, as if it was cheering and jumping for joy. Chen Guang did not know what was going on. He did not open any world in the cup. But why did the power of the Holy Grail and the essence of heaven and earth suddenly become more intense? Is it because I am in a hurry to save someone, so I am highly nervous and the heavenly Holy Grail automatically cooperated with me? That's not right. This feeling did not suddenly appear today, but had been lingering ever since he returned from the Baylor Mountain of the Shattered World. Previously, the power of the Holy Grail in this world had always been becoming more intense, and this trend had never stopped. It was only today that the quantitative change finally triggered a qualitative change, crossing a certain boundary. At this moment, Dan and Song and his group of 9 people were escorting Shi Lu, braving the heavy rain and stepping on the mud, moving forward with difficulty. Chapter 984. Brother Bao, were 2F *King unlucky. Huzi grumbled as he chopped down the bushes in front of him. Why is it raining so heavily for no reason? Bao Song glared at him. Isn't this your fault? Didn't you say that you know the situation in the mountains like the back of your hand? Didn't you feel anything when it rained so heavily? Huzi scratched his head. Speaking of which, it's strange. Usually when my dad and I go hunting in the mountains, we can smell the moisture in the air with just a twitch of our noses. We can tell if it's going to rain or how heavy it will be. But today, when we got out of the car and ran, I smelled it. There were almost no clouds in the sky, and there were no signs of rain. Look, there aren't any clouds yet. This weather is too weird. Stop talking nonsense and lead the way. Brother Bao, why don't we think of a way to go back? The rain can wash away the footprints we left earlier, and the police dogs don't like our smell. This is a good thing, but it's also a bad thing. The road has become more difficult to walk. Based on the current situation, we might not be able to reach Maji town in another 10 hours. I'm not afraid, but I'm afraid that you guys and this woman won't be able to hold on. Huzi pointed to Shilu, who was surrounded by the crowd. She was limping, and her face was covered in rain and mud. She looked extremely pathetic. When it rains, it pours. Shilu's luck index today was as high as 10,000 points. When she was walking just now, she accidentally slipped and fell, and her ankle might have been sprained. Now, not to mention suddenly running away, it took all her strength just to stand. Bao and Song looked at Shilu impatiently. Jiang Yage, hurry up. Don't dilly-dally, or I'll shoot you and let you feed the wolves here. Believe it or not, Shilu trembled. She knew that she had been made a scapegoat, but she didn't expose her identity. Instead, she gritted her teeth without saying a word and forced herself to keep up with Huzi's pace. She lowered her head and didn't make a sound. Huzi turned back and said, Brother Bao, don't make such jokes when we're in the mountains. What joke? Don't talk about wolves. Although the most ferocious beasts in this mountain are bears and tigers, the biggest threat to humans is the wolf pack. They form groups and attack from the front and back, unlike lone bears. Some wolves aren't even afraid of gunshots when their ferocious nature kicks in. Dan and Song curled his lips nonchalantly. I'm just saying, I won't really come. Sai, if you believe it, it won't work if you don't believe it. When we're in the mountains, we have to be careful with our words. All right, I won't say anything. Do we continue forward or go back? Tiger asked again. Wonk and Song hesitated for a moment, then took out his phone. He thought that if he walked further in, his phone would probably lose signal. Should he call his father and ask what the situation was like outside? If he scolded her, she would just beg for mercy. If he scolded her too harshly and she didn't listen, she would just hang up and turn off her phone. Let me ask about my dad first. Saying so, Wonk and Song turned on his phone. Before he could unlock it, the caller ID lit up. It was Ma Song, the captain of Tong Yuan's bodyguards. Perhaps he had been calling nonstop for the past hour. Picking up the call, Ma Song's voice came through. Boss, it's connected. Master Wonk has turned on his phone. Give me the phone. This was Wonk Fatai's voice. Hearing his father's tone, Wonk and Song subconsciously wanted to beg for mercy again. Dad, Wonk Fatai interrupted Wonk and Song. You little rascal. Do you know how big of a disaster you've gotten yourself into? Wonk and Song was a little indignant. It's not a big deal. I just kidnapped a female celebrity. It's not like I haven't done it before. You still have the cheek to say it. Why can't I say it? Dad, don't worry. I know the psychology of these celebrities very well. As long as I don't break her arms or legs, she won't be able to make a fart if she still wants to earn money in the future. Don't be fooled by how innocent they pretend to be in front of others. God knows how many masters they have to serve in a year. For people like them, no matter how much I torture them, they won't make a fuss. Otherwise, their reputation will be in tatters. I'll record a video of her later. She's even more afraid than I am. Bullsh asterisk T. Moneybag was about to go crazy from anger. What kind of situation was this? His stupid son was still saying such reckless words. He remembered what county magistrate who had told him just now. Although he still didn't know Jiang Yage's identity, it was impossible for the two top military and political leaders of Kainan province to call him at the same time. If county magistrate who could say that if she lost a hair, he as the county magistrate would have to run away, and if Jiang Yage lost a hair, he would have to shoot Peng and Song, then her background must be beyond his imagination. Dad, don't be like this. If you only know how to scold me, I'll switch off my phone again. Wait. Hearing that his unlucky and stupid son was going to switch off his phone again, Wonk Fatai was afraid of him. His tone became gentler. Son, listen to me. Wonk and Song's heart skipped a beat when he heard that Wonk Fatai's tone had become unprecedentedly gentle. An inexplicable sense of Danger rose in his heart, and he could no longer be tough. Instead, he felt a little flustered. Dad, Dad, what happened? Wonk Fatai's tone became gentler. It's all my fault. I spoiled you too much, and that's why you developed such a personality. I used to think that it was all your mother's fault, but now that I think about it, I'm no better. Dad, don't interrupt me. Listen, time is of the essence, so I'll make it short. As long as we escape, as long as there's life, we won't have to worry about young Chai. Otherwise, even if we really shoot Wonk down, I'm afraid we'll still be hunted down later. If Hu Jintao wants to escape, then even Master won't be able to protect us tomorrow. We have to rely on ourselves. Brother Bun, what did your dad say? Tiger quickly asked Wonk and Song. Wonk and Song gritted his teeth. What else can we do? Run. We can't go back to Baishui County now. If we go back, we'll really die. We've stirred up a hornet's nest. That's right. That woman is a hornet's nest. He pointed at Shilu's back and said, just follow the route you told my dad just now. He'll be waiting for us in the car with his men. We won't go to Maji Town. How long do you think it'll take for us to reach the mountain road? 3 hours if we're fast, if we're slow. That's fine. As long as we meet up with my dad before they catch up, we'll be able to escape. Don't stop. Hurry up. Stupid woman. You better hurry up too. I'm dead because of you this time. You have such a powerful background. Why are you hiding it? If you had told me earlier, would I have attacked you? It's all your fault that we ended up like this. Wonk and Song took 2 steps forward and wanted to lift his leg to kick Shilu. Unexpectedly, Shilu quickened her pace and took a step forward, causing him to kick the air. The rain and wind caused the temperature to drop exceptionally low. After walking for a long time, the pain in her ankle was so numb that she couldn't feel it. A strong desire to live supported every inch of space in her mind. Shilu's steps became firmer and faster, and she was just barely able to keep up with the others. Her determination temporarily saved her life. Since she had already decided to escape, once she showed any signs of not being able to keep up, dragging the others down, or showing signs of wanting to escape, Wonk and Song would shoot her without hesitation. Chapter 985. What county magistrate who did not know was that his momentary lapse in secrecy had allowed Fortune Bringer to take the risk to protect Tong and Song. Big Beard Deng would not have expected that his decision to conceal the hostage's identity would not only fail to help Shilu, but also put her in danger. If county magistrate who knew that the hostage was not Jiang Yage, he would not have had the idea of killing Tong and Song, and would have communicated with Fortune Bringer about the matter. As long as Tong and Song was sure that Shilu had not suffered any substantial injuries, he could easily persuade Tong and Song to return her to the rightful owner. After that, he could kowtow and beg for mercy and pay compensation. He could turn a big problem into a small one and a small one into nothing. As long as Tong and Song was fine, there was room for discussion. Of course, Chen Guang was also the reason why Fortune Bringer made up his mind. After all, he had seen how martial artists killed without saying a word. Since Chen Guang had stood up for Jiang Yage at the wine table yesterday, it meant that Jiang Yage had a special place in his heart. Apart from Jiang Yage's background, as long as a woman touched a martial artist, there was only one word in his dictionary: death. In short, as long as he wanted to protect Tong and Song's life, he had no choice as a father. How did you find the direction just now? Jiang Yage was still lying on Chen Guang's back, the wind blowing on her face. She could not help but ask curiously. Chen Guang's heart was heavy, but he joked with Jiang Yage. Didn't you listen to my chant? This is a very advanced martial art that I've cultivated. It's similar to 1,000-mile sound transmission, and it stimulates the guidance of spiritual energy to find the spiritual energy left behind by that group of people when they pass by. It's all kinds of emotions, such as fear and nervousness. It's also mentioned in approaching science. When a person's brain is in a state of thought and emotional fluctuation, it will release brain waves. This kind of brain wave will affect the things around him. It's very weak, but it can leave traces. I can see it. Old Master Guang was getting more and more familiar with swindling people, and he could easily make up lies. Swindling, continue swindling. What kind of damned incantation is that? Mother Earth is tricking me. May the holy light guide me. You think I've never played World of Warcraft before? You put the druid and the paladin together. Jiang Yage saw through Chen Guang's scheme. Old Master Guang felt extremely awkward. How could it not be slippery when he often walked by the river? He had used too many tricks, but he didn't expect to meet someone who knew the ropes and expose him on the spot. I made up the incantation, but I can't explain it to you. What's important isn't the incantation I recited, but my thoughts at the time. Sincerity brings results. Okay? Forget it. Anyway, it's not the first day I've known you. You're always talking big. All right, how long will it take to catch up? 10 minutes at most, Chen Guang said resolutely. In a sense, he wasn't bluffing Jiang Yage. What he said was true. Previously, when he sensed that the power of the Holy Grail in this world had become exceptionally rich, his Earth Exploder's special ability had become extremely active. This was because the Holy Grail's power, which could replace the origin energy, was constantly being converted into abundant elemental energy. Although it couldn't be compared to the soul world that he was in during the Second Punishment World, it was enough to support the absorption of the Earth Exploder's special ability and recover a portion of its power. Of course, ever since the end of the Second Punishment World, Chen Guang's Earth Exploder ability had been slowly recovering. When he killed Ouyang Tianqing, he had devoured the remaining power of the Broken World Holy Tribe, which was a huge supplement. Until now, thanks to the continuous invisible strengthening of the Holy Grail's power, his Earth Exploder ability had finally crossed a threshold. The most typical example was that he could finally try to communicate with the elemental energy of the outside world. Just now, in order to find a way to continue tracking them, he had racked his brains. First, he tried to communicate with the heaven and earth chi as a martial sage, which was the intuition of a martial artist. He then tried to use the earth-based special ability to communicate with the elemental energy. Both methods had some effect, but the answer he got was not certain. Suddenly, he had an idea and simply merged the two abilities together. While circulating his inner strength, he also tried to mobilize the special ability of the Earth Exploder. After a short attempt, he actually found the feeling. The guidance of the earth element became clearer, as though there was someone standing in front of him, constantly telling him, "Here, here, same here." In order to avoid having to explain the principles to Jiang Yage, he casually made up a heart sutra to muddle through. He did not expect to go for wool and come home shorn. However, this was not important. What was important was that he would soon be able to find the people and save Shi Lu. 5 minutes later, Chen Guang finally completely passed through the section of the road where the footprints of Wound Song and the rest had been washed away by the rain. This was the place where they had passed when it started raining. From there, the soil became muddy and their footprints became clear. At that moment, Chen Guang also discovered a new problem. There is an extra pair of footprints. What happened? The shoes are small. It should be that Shi Lu was put down for a period of time and walked on her own. Then why didn't she escape? This dark forest is easy to escape from. This is deep in the forest, and there might be ferocious beasts around. She is a girl and did not bring any survival tools with her. She also has no way to communicate with the outside world. Even if she escaped, she might not survive. Of course, it is more likely that Wound Song and the rest have guns in their hands and she can't escape. The two of them chased for a distance before Chen Guang said, "Shi Lu twisted her ankle here. She is injured." "Ah, these be asterisk starts." Chen Guang comforted her. "Don't worry, it will be over soon. There is good news. At least it means that Shi Lu has not suffered any major losses. They are also panicking when they escape and have no time to do anything Shi Lu." Jiang Yage nodded. "I hope so." Further ahead, Wound Song's group of 9 and Shi Lu, who were supposed to be escaping in a panic, stopped in their tracks and looked ahead with a face full of fear. Dark green lights were slowly rising from the dense forest in front of them like fireflies. These firefly lights were in pairs, and most of them were less than half a meter from the ground. A low, hoarse groan came from all directions, accompanied by the sound of rustling. The heavy rain was still pouring, but it could not cover up these strange sounds. The starlight and moonlight were still shining brightly in the sky, but it made everyone feel even more fearful in the shadows. The green lights were getting denser and denser. They were in all four directions of the dense forest. Huzi took out his saber from his waist. His teeth were chattering. Brother Bao, wolf pack. What huge wolf pack. He would never forget the story his father told him. Never run around in this forest in the middle of the night, because you would never know when the wild wolves would quietly surround you. They were 100 times scarier than lone bears, tigers, and wild boars. Your grandfather, your great-grandfather, your great-great-grandfather, they all died in the hands of the wolf pack. Huzi licked his lips. Dad, you forgot to mention one person. That's yourself. Am I coming to now? Such a huge wolf pack was beyond his knowledge. Shilu instinctively wanted to hide in the middle of the crowd. She was so nervous that her legs were trembling and she had no strength left in her. Everyone stand up straight. We cannot fall. We must not fall. The wolves are more cunning than you think. They have quietly surrounded us. They haven't attacked us yet because we seem to be in good spirits. However, once someone falls down, they will think that we are weak. They will rush up and bite us to death without hesitation. I have never seen such a huge wolf pack. There are at least 70 to 80 of them. There might be more lurking around the perimeter. There are hundreds of them. There must be an extremely powerful wolf king in this pack. The intelligence and strength of such a wolf king is at least a few times that of a normal alpha wolf. Huzi shouted loudly, try his best to make his voice sound powerful. He was bluffing. Shilu pinched her thighs tightly. 2 streams of tears mixed with the rainwater flowed down to the ground. There were too many wolves. Am I going to die here in the end? Huzi, what should we do now? Nanan Song clenched the gun in his hand tightly. His breathing was as heavy as a bellow. He would never have thought that his casual joke would become a prophecy. Although he was not a hunter, as a native of Whitewater River County, he knew how terrifying a pack of hundreds of wolves was. Huzi's eyes turned rapidly. He frantically searched his mind for the survival method taught by his ancestors. His eyes looked around frantically. It was impossible to rush out. There was only one way. That was to climb up the tree and wait for others to bring heavy firepower to rescue them. His eyes drifted to a foot-thick tree about 4 to 5 meters away from the group. This was a dense forest. There were many trees around them that they could climb. The tree that Huzi had chosen was rather large. It was not the closest one, but because of its special branches, it was the easiest to climb. The rainwater had made the tree somewhat slippery, but with a hook at his waist, he should be able to climb up. If he moved faster, he could probably pull Brother Meow up as well. As for the others, the 8 immortals crossed the sea and each displayed their own abilities. Everyone prayed for their own luck. After all, as long as Brother Meow's life was preserved, his father would definitely come to rescue him. However, they couldn't act rashly now. Once they showed any signs of escaping, the cunning wolves would definitely pounce on them in an instant. At that time, shooting would be of no use. Blood would only stimulate the wolves' ferocious nature. As long as the Wolf King did not die, it would not care about the lives of the weak wolves in the vanguard. It would only command the other wolves to attack like waves. Brother Meow, I have an idea. Say it. Nanan's song was burning with anxiety. Huzi pointed to Shilu, who was in the middle of the group. Let her take a stick and go to the front. We'll take the opportunity to climb up the tree. Shilu finally broke down. No. Nanan's song did not listen to her explanation. He turned and pointed the gun at her. You choose. Either you run forward with all your might. You might be able to escape, or I'll shoot you dead. Huzi admired Nanan's song's decisiveness. He thought that if it were him, he would really be reluctant to sacrifice such a delicate superstar. What a pity, but it was fine. Her flesh was more tender, and the wolves liked it more. Shilu faced the gun and looked at Nanan's song's ferocious expression. Give her a stick. Nanan's song pouted and said, I'll give you 3 seconds to consider. Either you run out yourself, or I'll shoot you dead and throw your corpse out. To me, the effect is the same. Huzi secretly gestured to Nanan's song. Nanan's song and Huzi understood each other. In fact, that was what he had planned to do. When Jiang Yage ran a few steps forward and was about to reach the wolves, he would shoot her from behind. At that time, the blood splashing from her body would definitely attract all the attention of the wolves in a short time. Shilu knew that she had no other choice. She took the metal stick from a man and held it tightly in her hand. She wanted to live, not die. Taking a deep breath, she yelled crazily and waved her iron rod. She staggered and rushed toward the wolves step by step. Ah, 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 ah. Sure enough, the wolves' attention was attracted to her. The howling became louder, and the green glow under the night sky became lower. Huzi saw the opportunity and gave Nan and Tsang a look. He then shouted in a low voice, "Brothers, quickly think of a way to climb up the tree. These trees are very old, and there are many scars on them. Just dig, and you'll be able to climb up. It's very easy to climb." Without caring about the others, Huzi turned and quickly ran towards the tree he had chosen earlier. Nan and Tsang followed closely while the others pounced on the nearest tree. They didn't care about the size of the tree. They grabbed a tree and tried to climb up. Huzi took out a metal hook from his waist and held it in his hands. He used each hand to hit the tree trunk and climbed up. "Don't worry, Brother Nan. I'll pull you up when I get up." Huzi lowered his voice and said to Nan and Tsang behind him. Nan and Tsang nodded. He turned around and aimed the flashlight and muzzle at Shilu's figure. He narrowed his eyes and said, "I understand. Hurry up." Shilu's heart beat faster and faster. The wolves in front of her became clearer under the dim moonlight. There seemed to be someone shining a flashlight in their direction. These wolves had grayish-black fur, white fangs, sharp claws, and cold eyes. Their tails were pointed towards the ground. The fur on their tails was straight like steel needles, even under the beating of the rain. They were getting closer and closer. "I'm going to die. I can't take this lying down." Shilu shouted even louder. Her thin and slender hands exploded with unprecedented strength. She waved the metal rod in her hands so hard that it was even louder than the sound of the rain, wind, and the wolves' howls. "Oh, whoa!" A loud howl came from the back of the pack of wolves. This was the Wolf King blowing the horn to attack. The wolves immediately responded in unison. Their ear-piercing howls pierced through the air. The wolves in front of Shilu were the fastest. They first lowered their bodies slightly, then exerted force with their hind legs and sprang forward. Nan and Tsang used his left ring and middle fingers to hold the flashlight. His left index finger supported the bottom of his right wrist. His right hand had never been so steady. The black muzzle was aimed at Shilu's back. There was only a crazed light in his eyes. He slowly increased the strength of his right index finger. Definitely, he had to hit her in one shot. Chapter 986. Bang! The bullet pierced through the air and went straight for the back of Shilu's head. Shilu did not know anything. She was swinging the metal rod in her hand at the wolf in front of her. She was still dreaming of beating the wolf to death and then running away. She believed that humans had potential. In a desperate situation, they could explode with strength that surpassed the limits of humans. Unfortunately, she was just a mortal and her potential was limited. She did not know that there was a fatal bullet flying towards the back of her head. The speed of a bullet from a handgun was about the speed of sound. She would probably be dead the moment she heard the gunshot. As for Wan and Song, he did not look at Shilu's situation after shooting. Instead, he turned around and took the rope that Huzi threw down from the tree. He held onto it tightly and arched his back, preparing to climb up the tree. The feel of this shot was too good. It made him very confident. He was glad that he did not waste his time when he had the chance to practice shooting in the past. He thought that he was quite talented in this. Poof! At this moment, a muffled sound came from Shilu's direction. Wan Song thought that Jiang Yage was probably dead. He then turned to look at Shilu's direction. The next moment, he was stunned. Shilu was still standing there, but she had already turned her head. Even though the night was dim, Wan Song could tell that her head had not exploded. She was indeed looking back at him. What was going on? What was going on? Why wasn't she dead? Did I miss? That was impossible. The wolf pack was still pouncing toward Shilu. They bared their teeth and were unusually fierce. But the strange thing was that every time these wolves got close to Shilu, they would howl and fly backwards without warning. It was as if something had hit them on the head, or as if they had hit an invisible wall. What the hell? Wan Song was so shocked that he even forgot to climb up the tree. The wolf pack was also ferocious. The harder it was to bite Shi Lu, the more they pounced on her. Even the wolves that were originally pouncing towards Wan Song and the others changed their direction and went straight for Shi Lu. The angry howls of the Wolf King did not stop. It was probably the Wolf King secretly commanding the pack of wolves. "Brother Wan, hurry up," Hu Zi urged from the tree. Nong and Song looked around and realized that the pack of wolves pouncing from behind had gone straight for Jiang Yage. His heart calmed down a little. "Wait, I must kill her. Brother Bao, what time is this? It's better for her to live longer. Come up quickly." Hu Zi urged him again. At this time, the other people who were unable to climb up the tree due to the slippery trunk also reacted, and one by one, they told Wang Song not to shoot. Nan and Song unwillingly put away his gun and turned around to climb up the tree. At this moment, a tall figure came from afar in the wind and stopped in front of Jiang Yage. The figure was so fast that the strong wind and rainwater that he brought with him hit Nong and Song's body, causing his body to tilt subconsciously. He leaned against the tree trunk to barely stand up. Nong and Song's pupils constricted, and he forgot to climb up the tree. He swung his hand and aimed the flashlight in the direction of the black shadow. Chen Guang. In the distance, Chen Guang was standing with his hands behind his back. On his back, a girl was quickly sliding down. Then, Nong and Song saw the girl's face clearly from afar. It was Jiang Yage. What was going on? There were two Jiang Yages. But very quickly, his attention was attracted by Chen Guang. Compared to the strange situation of two Jiang Yages, the current Chen Guang was even more terrifying. At this moment, this hero of the pugilistic world, who his father said killed a person every 10 steps and left no trace for 1,000 miles, was looking at him indifferently with a pair of extremely cold eyes. From the other party's eyes, Nong and Song seemed to read an emotion. He wasn't looking at a person, but a corpse. Unknowingly, Nong and Song's hair stood on end. An unprecedented sense of danger arose in his heart, as if he would be beheaded in the next moment. The pack of wolves was still madly pouncing in the direction of the three people. But no matter how fiercely they pounced, they hit an invisible wall and couldn't move an inch. The rain above the three of them was splashing in the air, forming a semicircular cover that slowly flowed down. This semicircular cover was the barrier that blocked the advance of the pack of wolves. "Brother Nong, hurry up." Sitting on the tree with his back facing Shi Lu, Hu Zi didn't know what was happening. He was still desperately urging Nong and Song to pull him up. The others, regardless of whether they were on the tree or not, were all staring blankly in the direction of Chen Guang. Only then did Hu Zi realize something was wrong. He turned his head and then froze on the tree, forgetting to continue pulling the rope. My God! Nong and Song finally broke free from his fear. He raised his hand and gun and shouted hysterically, "Kill him! Kill him!" Bang, bang, bang. He aimed his gun in the direction of Chen Guang and pulled the trigger crazily. The other two people also took out their guns from their pockets and fired in the direction of Chen Guang. But something that made them feel despair happened. In the distance, Chen Guang still had his left hand behind his back, but he stretched out his right hand with his palm facing forward and his 5 fingers spread out. A silent but visible vibration was emitted from his palm, causing the water that was slowly flowing down the wall to scatter in all directions. Under the light of the flashlight, the water droplets that were blown away were crystal clear and extremely alluring. But under this different kind of beauty, there was a scene that made people despair. All the bullets that were shot by the 3 pistols, other than the ones that flew off, were all shot in the right direction. It was as if they had shot into a transparent quagmire, quietly floating in the air in front of Chen Guang's 5 fingers. The scattered bullets seemed to be embedded in the invisible air barrier in front of Chen Guang. Click, click sounds came one after another. He didn't know when, but the gun in Nong Song's hand had already fired all the bullets. The gun barrel was burning hot, but his heart was piercingly cold. Similar sounds came from the direction of the other 2 gunmen. There were no more bullets. Unfortunately, their crazy shooting had no effect. Chun Guang was still in the same posture with his right hand in front of him, but the bullets floating in front of him had become more numerous. Rainwater continued to pour down from above the dense forest, hitting the circular energy cover before flowing down. When it passed by the bullet floating in the air, it was sliced to the sides, but then flowed through the middle of the bullet in an extremely orderly circular arc. Time seemed to have completely stopped at this moment. Even Jiang Yage, who was standing behind Chun Guang, and Shi Lu, who was sitting paralyzed on the ground and turned her head to look in this direction, were completely stunned. There was no sound between heaven and earth. Not even the rain dared to come close. Perhaps only the wolf pack, who didn't know what was happening, was still madly attacking in vain. Nongcong unknowingly dropped the gun in his hand and knelt on the ground. "I beg you, don't kill me. I know I was wrong. I beg you." He finally completely believed what his father had said. There really were heroes in this world. In a sense, the power that Chun Guang had displayed was even more terrifying than the heroes in television dramas. It was almost like immortal arts and evil arts. He finally understood why the first Jiang Yage didn't die after the first shot. It must have been because he shot a drop of water from afar that caused the bullet to deviate. Why was I so stupid? How could I dare to provoke such a person? He knelt on the ground and hammered his head into the mud in front of him again and again. The others weren't much better. They all followed Nongcong's actions and knelt on the ground, kowtowing crazily. Even the wolf pack, which had never stopped attacking, was forgotten by these people. Chun Guang's attention wasn't on them. He just waved his hand impatiently. Beg for mercy? It's too late. He flicked the fingers of his right hand, as if he was shooing away flies. The bullets floating in front of him instantly turned around and flew backward, even faster than when he fired the gun. The effect of fusing the dart technique with the release of inner strength was unexpectedly good. It was accurate, fast, and ruthless, and it even had the range effect of multiple shots. 9 consecutive sounds of flesh being pierced were heard, and a bloody hole suddenly appeared between the eyebrows of Dan and Song, Hu Zi, and the others. Then, they didn't even have the time to scream before they silently fell to the ground. Those who had already climbed up the tree fell with their heads up and fell to the ground like a piece of torn cloth. There was no more sound. Jiang Yage and Shi Lu both covered their mouths. The 2 girls didn't expect Chun Guang to kill them so decisively. "All right, stop daydreaming here. It's not over yet. It's just a few bastards that died. It's not worth mentioning." Chun Guang turned around and waved his hand casually. As Jiang Yage helped Shi Lu up, she asked in confusion, "Aren't these wolves unable to pounce on us? What's there to be afraid of?" Chun Guang rolled his eyes. "You think it's easy for me? Inner strength is free. Cabbages, these wolves aren't simple." As Chun Guang spoke, he pulled the 2 behind him and looked around with a serious expression. Jiang Yage muttered to herself, "What's so strange about it? Aren't they just wild huskies?" Of course, she only thought about it in her heart. She wouldn't say it out loud. Shi Lu clenched her fists and curled up behind Chun Guang. Her heart was pounding. Just now, when she was about to swing the stick at the wild wolf in front of her, she heard a poof at the back of her head. Then, a gust of wind brushed past her face. Something flew past her ear and cut off a chunk of her hair. Almost at the same time, she heard a gunshot and knew that Wang and Song had shot at her. But at this moment, she still didn't know why the bullets missed. Just as she turned back to look at Nong and Song, under the illumination of Nong and Song's flashlight, she saw with her own eyes 2 water droplets shooting from the side behind her, hitting the heads of the wolves that were pouncing over and sending these terrifying beasts flying. Only then did she understand that someone had used the water droplets to help her block the bullets. Then, Chun Guang carried Jiang Yage on his back and descended from the sky. Then, Jiang Yage came down from his back. Jiang Yage had just landed on the ground when gunshots rang out again. This time, they came from more than one direction. At that time, Shi Lu thought that the 3 of them were going to die. But Chun Guang, who was standing at the front, just opened his hands and the bullets stopped abruptly in front of them. Before she could react to what was going on, the bullets flew out again. Wonk and Song and the others, who were extremely vicious in her eyes, died on the spot. All of this happened too quickly and didn't give her much time to think. Shilu, don't worry. It's fine. With him here, we're very safe. Even if the sky falls, he can hold it up. Jiang Yage, who was supporting Shilu, said with a smile. She didn't take the wolves in front of the three of them seriously. Oh, woo! The Wolf King's howl sounded again, but it wasn't an order to retreat. Instead, it was like a war drum to boost the morale of two armies. The wolves that were advancing in waves were getting closer. They didn't show any signs of retreating. Instead, they became even crazier. Under the Wolf King's command, the wolves didn't attack the 9 corpses on the ground. Instead, they continued to surround Chen Guang and the other 2. More and more wolves were densely packed. It was a sight that made one's teeth ache. Chen Guang, hurry up and kill them. Jiang Yage didn't understand why Chen Guang looked like he was facing a great enemy. Although the wolves were scary to ordinary people, she didn't think that these big dogs could pose a threat to him. However, Chen Guang paid no attention to her and continued to look at the wolves. Actually, before he came closer, he had a faint feeling that something was wrong. If there was really nothing strange about these wolves, when he flicked the water droplets over with his fingers, even the smallest water droplets should have been able to smash the skulls of these wolves. But the reality was that even though these wolves were sent flying, they rolled on the ground twice and were covered in mud. Then, they shook their heads and stood up again. They recovered quickly and continued to attack. Chen Guang focused his attention and kept the internal energy and superpower in his body in a highly active state. He sensed an extremely familiar scent from these wolves. It was elemental energy. It was extremely complicated and not strong. It was much weaker than Ouyang Tianxing's, but it existed objectively. The elemental energy in the world that was transformed from the power of the Holy Grail was too rich. The elemental energy in these wolves was even richer. They had mutated. At this moment, Shi Lu, who was supported by Jiang Yage, heard Jiang Yage talk to Chen Guang like that and felt an indescribable sense of envy in her heart. But she knew that it was useless. Jiang Yage and Chen Guang had known each other when they were down and out. They were true friends who had gone through thick and thin. Now that Chen Guang had made a name for himself and changed his identity, the gap between them was too big. If she wanted to be like Jiang Yage and take the initiative to get close to him, even if she had a clear conscience, it would still be inappropriate in the eyes of others, and even him. Just the ability that he had displayed now made him like the stars in the sky. Although she was considered beautiful in the eyes of ordinary people, she was ultimately just a mortal on the ground. There was a saying that went, "You can only blame yourself for not being able to meet again." The Wolf King howled again, but it was different from before. This time, it was much closer. But this time, they attacked the humans without any fear of death. Even though Chen Guang had used water droplets as darts to knock them to the ground over and over again, and even though Dan and Song and the rest had fired wildly, they still could not shake the frenzied wolf pack in the slightest. It seemed that not only did the elemental energy make them stronger, it also made them more bloodthirsty and relentless. However, there was also another possibility. The overly powerful Silver Wolf King had inflated its ego. It led the wolves to attack the humans, not because they were hungry, but because it wanted to test how strong its newly acquired power was. Roar! Just as Chen Guang was analyzing the situation in his mind, the Silver Wolf King in front of him had already let out a roar and was the first to charge forward. The Silver Wolf King looked huge, but its movements were extremely fast. It crossed a distance of more than 10 meters in the blink of an eye, and in the next moment, it was already in the air with its claws spread open, and it pounced towards Chen Guang from above. From the Silver Wolf King's brief movements, Chen Guang could sense a hint of the earth cutter that he had fought before. However, it did not have the earth element in its body, but an even sharper type of elemental energy, which was a little metallic. As the Silver Wolf King led the charge, the other wolves around it also charged forward in unison, as if they were going to launch their final attack. For a moment, The wolves surrounded Chen Guang and the others from all directions, with the Silver Wolf King as the leader, the 8 mutated giant wolves as support, and the remaining dozens of wolves as support. An unprecedented amount of elemental energy, something that had never appeared on Earth, charged towards Chen Guang in a frenzy. The Silver Wolf King was still flying in the air when it suddenly opened its mouth, and a silver ray of light shot out from its tongue, piercing through the air towards the space between Chen Guang's eyebrows. The other 8 mutated giant wolves also unleashed their own abilities. The shadow wolf that was as black as ink spat out a ball of black mist from its mouth. It seemed to be moving slowly, but it was actually flying towards Chen Guang at an extremely fast speed, devouring the light along the way. It was actually the rare power of darkness. The giant green wolf clawed at the ground with its claws, and 2 rays of green light filled with the power of the wind element flew out in a crisscrossed manner. The giant blue wolf's fur stood on end, and it did a somersault in the air, turning its back towards Chen Guang. The fur on its body instantly froze, and countless ice needles shot out from its back like lightning. It looked like a porcupine launching an attack, but its power was many times greater. The giant red wolf was of the fire element, and it opened its mouth to spit out a fireball. The fireball grew in the heavy rain, illuminating the surroundings as it swept towards Tang Wulin. The 8 mutated giant wolves each had their own unique characteristics, but none of them were to be underestimated. As for the other wolves, although they were not as strong as the Silver Wolf King and the mutated giant wolves, many of them also displayed special abilities brought about by the power of the elements. For example, their fangs grew longer, or their claws emitted sparks, or their bodies suddenly expanded, becoming exceptionally large. If not for the fact that they were in a life-and-death situation, the 2 girls, Jiang Yage and Shilu, would have been dazzled by the dazzling attacks in front of them. At this moment, the 2 girls did not know what they could do, nor did they know what kind of situation they were facing. If not for the fact that it was happening right in front of their eyes, the 2 of them would have thought that they were filming a Hollywood fantasy movie. As actors, the 2 of them had acted in all kinds of strange things in movies. If it were an ordinary person, they would have long since fainted. Even so, they could only hold their breaths and stare blankly at the broad back of the man in front of them, pinning all their hopes on Chen Guang. Faced with the oncoming attack of the wolf pack, Chen Guang, who was previously extremely fearful, felt much more relaxed. Fortunately, these wild beasts were only enjoying the leftovers brought about by the power of the Holy Grail. To an ordinary person, they might be so powerful that they were almost undefeatable, but in front of a high-level elemental creature like him, the Earth Popper, their abilities were not enough. You lowly beasts, you want to use me as a touchstone for your special abilities? I'm sorry, but you found the wrong target. All of you have to kneel and call me grandfather. Chen Guang laughed coldly and suddenly spread his arms. The strength of the martial sage realm burst forth from his left hand, while the special ability of the Earth Popper spread out from his right. The 2 equally powerful forces instantly intertwined in the middle of his hands, and in the next instant, they turned into a pillar that replenished the invisible barrier in front of him. The silver light spat out by the Silver Wolf King was the first to collide with the barrier. With a crisp sound, the silver light only managed to break through the barrier for a short, while before it was completely destroyed by the special ability of the Earth Popper, which was many realms higher than it, and returned to its most basic elemental energy. The attacks of the other 8 mutated giant wolves seemed terrifying, but in reality, they were not much better. They were all blocked outside. Jiang Yage and Shilu were both inside the colorful circular barrier. Even though they knew that they were not out of danger yet, the 2 of them were still completely immersed in the incomparably dazzling brilliance. It was natural for girls to love beauty. At this moment, Shilu had escaped from death, and the tension in her heart had greatly eased. With Jiang Yage's consolation, she firmly believed in Chen Guang's strength. Jiang Yage was even more blind, believing that as long as he said it, he would definitely be able to do it. At this moment, the 2 of them were nervous, but not nervous. Amidst their fear, there was also a sense of steadfastness and determination. They could not control their emotions at all, and subconsciously immersed themselves in the magnificent brilliance before them. However, the two of them were pulled back to reality in the blink of an eye. This was because the ordinary wolves had already pounced on the barrier. Their wide, open, bloody mouths seemed to be within reach, and the saliva dripping from their sharp fangs looked disgusting and terrifying. The two girls subconsciously hugged each other tightly and screamed involuntarily. However, the wolf pack's attack was futile. Unlike the previous attacks that were only blocked and bounced off, the invisible barrier that was once again fused with an even more powerful inner force and earth elemental energy wrapped around these reckless wolves. It was as if they had flown into a quagmire in a swamp, and then ruthlessly tore them apart like a meat grinder. Boiling red blood splattered all over the sky. Bits of flesh and white bones mixed with broken fangs flew in all directions. This scene was bloody, yet bewitchingly beautiful. Upon seeing this, the originally arrogant Silver Wolf King let out a blood-curdling cry. Its body abruptly stopped in mid-air, as if defying gravity. It twisted its body in a strange manner in mid-air, and turned around in an attempt to escape. Accompanying the Silver Wolf King's blood-curdling cry, which also sounded like an order to retreat, the remaining 70 to 80 wolves also turned around and ran, scattering in all directions. With the heavenly Holy Grail in his hand, as the world's most powerful martial artist, as well as the ultimate elemental form of the Earth Marmalade Exploder, Chun Guang, who could be mentioned in the same breath as a god emperor. How could he lose to these mutated beasts that had eaten his leftovers? Beasts were still beasts after all. If they really had the intelligence of humans, they would have known from the beginning that they were no match for Chun Guang. By the time they finally realized that they had found the wrong opponent, it was already too late. Chun Guang's eyes were bloodshot. Since he had run into these mutated beasts, he could not let even one of them escape. Otherwise, if ordinary people ran into them, even an armed army might not be able to deal with them. Try to run? No way. Chun Guang stomped his right foot heavily on the ground. With him as the center, a loud rumbling sound came from the ground 100 meters away. In an instant, an earthen wall about 15 feet tall rose out of thin air. At first glance, these earthen walls did not look like anything special, but upon closer inspection, they looked like countless intertwining quicksand. Chapter 988. The wild wolves that were on the periphery were the first to collide with the wall. These beasts did not know how powerful the wall was and only tried to scratch with their claws. However, as soon as their claws reached in, they were instantly wrapped up by the quicksand on the surface of the wall, unable to escape. Chun Guang snorted coldly. He spread open the fingers of his right hand and clenched his fist. Sand binding coffin. Following his shout, the wild wolves that were caught in the quicksand wall all screamed and exploded in the sand, as if they had been crushed by a giant's fist. You're running your mouth again. You think I haven't seen Naruto before? Jiang Yage, who had calmed down again, immediately exposed this guy who was too lazy to give a name to his ultimate move. Although she did not know how he did it, nor did she understand what kind of ability it was, Jiang Yage subconsciously understood that this was definitely not something that could be explained by a simple inner force martial artist. However, this was not important at all. He was Chun Guang anyway. Even if he could open his mouth and swallow the sun into his stomach, there was no need to make a fuss about it. The remaining wolves knew that they were powerful and immediately stopped in front of the quicksand wall. They did not dare to move an inch forward, but the wall was too high for them to jump over. The Silver Wolf King and the 8 mutated giant wolves also rushed to the front of the quicksand wall. These 9 giant wolves were quite capable. The Silver Wolf King's hind legs bounced off the ground and shot up into the sky like a cannonball. At a glance, it seemed like it could directly jump over. The Emerald Wind Wolf King, on the other hand, directly floated up into the air. The khaki-colored giant earth element wolf did not know what was good for it. It dived head first into the quicksand wall, as if it wanted to turn into soil and pass through the wall. Unfortunately, as soon as its elemental power came into contact with the power of Chun Guang's kind, which was countless times higher, It was instantly suppressed and died on the spot. On the other side, the Silver Wolf King rushed higher and higher. Just as it was about to escape, the quicksand wall suddenly expanded under Chen Guang's secret control. It shot up into the sky, and the top continued to gather above Chen Guang's head. In the blink of an eye, the quicksand wall had become a pot lid, covering the 3 people and the remaining 60 to 70 wolves. This move could also be called closing the door and beating the dog. Chen Guang turned around and shrugged at Jiang Yage and Shi Lu. Why don't you close your eyes later? The next scene is a little bloody and not suitable for children. After saying that, he turned around and walked forward, cracking his knuckles. Despairing, the Silver Wolf King turned around and pounced. This time, Chen Guang did not use his superpower. His martial sage realm, genuine chi, burst out, and he used the real martial sage unique skill, true martial divine skill. His body was indestructible. He stretched out his hands and grabbed the upper and lower jaws of the Silver Wolf King. His fingers locked onto its teeth and tore them apart. Dying, the Silver Wolf King was torn in half. A merciless massacre had officially begun. From start to finish, it took less than a minute. When the wall of quicksand returned to the ground, all that was left was a ground covered in blood and broken wolf corpses. Chen Guang returned to the stunned Jiang Yage and Shi Lu and shrugged. I'm sorry, I didn't want to make it so bloody. Actually, I used my other ability to maintain the wall of quicksand. I don't have much inner force left, so I could only rely on my physical body to solve the problem. I didn't scare you, did I? Jiang Yage and Shi Lu shook their heads in unison against their will. But soon, Jiang Yage vomited with an "oh," while Shi Lu burst into tears. She was scared out of her wits. Shi Lu cried for a few minutes until her tears were almost dry. Then, she looked around and began to vomit again. Jiang Yage didn't cry, but in a few minutes, she vomited all the stuff in her stomach, and her bile was almost gone. Chen Guang did not rush them. He stood behind them and patted them on the back. Then, he sat down cross-legged on the ground. Anyway, the military police of Baishui County were approaching quickly, so he might as well wait for them here. Of course, it was not because he wanted to wait for someone, but because although it was easy for him to deal with the wolves, he had used up a lot of his inner force and superpower. Ever since he cultivated the true martial skill and became a martial sage, Chen Guang had not felt empty in his stomach for a long time. Now that he was feeling weak, he was not used to it. Thus, he seized the time to meditate. On one hand, he was trying to recover his inner force as soon as possible. On the other hand, after the wolves died, the elemental power in their bodies was slowly released. Although Chen Guang could only absorb the earth elemental power, other than the Silver Wolf King and the 8 mutated giant wolves, the elemental power in the bodies of the other wolves was very heterogeneous. Among the various elemental powers that were released after their deaths, there was more or less some earth element. Even the relatively pure Silver Wolf King and the 8 mutated giant wolves had a lot of impurities in their bodies. Otherwise, their ranks would not be so far apart from Chen Guang. He was the original and only great earth exploder in the endless realm of the gods. Although the name wasn't very elegant, it was actually like the stone monkey that had existed since Pangu created the world, standing proudly above the East Sea, and was born from the 5-colored stone left behind by Nuwa when she patched up the heavens. The great earth exploder was the highest rank of elemental life that had never appeared in the endless realm of the gods. The elemental power in its body was also 100% pure. However, those that were lower than it, such as the great earth chaotic being, had not reached absolute purity. Perhaps it was 99% and N9s after it. However, no matter how many digits there were after the decimal point, it could only be infinitely close to absolute purity. It could not really cross this critical point. Just like in the real world, whether it was 1,000-foot gold, 10,000-foot gold, or 24K gold, there was no absolute 100% pure gold. Even if there was an impurity of other atoms, it could not be called pure gold. Modern scientists believe that humans are unable to create absolutely pure substances because molecules and atoms can diffuse. However, this was not the case for Chen Guang. He was absolutely pure and did not contain any impurities. Great Earth Exploder. Now that the entire pack of mutated wolves had been annihilated here, the earth element in the vicinity was particularly rich. It was a rare opportunity to use his special ability. Chun Guang simply took this opportunity to use his special ability to absorb the earth element around him like a whale sucking in water. In short, when the two girls were almost done crying and vomiting, Chun Guang also entered a shallow state of meditation. Although the two girls were scared to death, they did not dare to rashly disturb him when they saw him meditating like an old monk. They did not know what was so special about people who practice martial arts. Wasn't it shown on television that martial arts masters should not be touched when they meditated? They could easily go berserk, and they had to balance yin and yang in order to suppress it. Jiang Yage turned her head to look at Shi Lu and thought to herself, I must not touch him. I must definitely not touch him. Otherwise, it would be too terrifying. Someone would definitely die. As for whether it would be one more or one less life, it was not certain. If his output was a little larger, maybe there would be 2 more lives? But I would definitely faint, and so would Shi Lu. When others came over and found this guy in the F***CK, it would really be unimaginable. Unconsciously, Jiang Yage pulled Shi Lu further and further away, at least maintaining a distance of 5 or 6 meters from Chun Guang. Sister Yarge, we are, Shi Lu said with a trembling voice. She was a little scared when she was far away from Chun Guang. Jiang Yage patted her on the shoulder. Don't worry, all martial arts masters are like him. When they are tired of killing, they have to quickly meditate and chant scriptures to avoid having inner demons in their hearts. Shi Lu suddenly understood. I see. It's so hard for him. Jiang Yage rolled her eyes. Hey, what hard work? He's just pretending to chant scriptures. Forget it. Let's not disturb him. It's really a little cold. Shi Lu nodded. Leaving Chun Guang's side, he didn't use his internal energy to block the rain. The two of them had been drenched all the way until now, and their bodies were really cold. Achoo! Achoo! The two of them sneezed one after another. After a while, the rain in the sky suddenly stopped. The moonlight shone down and sparkled. If it weren't for the muddy ground, no one would have imagined that there would be a downpour in this forest tonight. However, Jiang Yage and Shi Lu didn't have a chance to warm up. The rain stopped, but the wind inexplicably became stronger again. At the same time, a strange wind blew from all directions and gathered in Chun Guang's direction. Jiang Yage and Xia Lu could see this strange phenomenon because they found that the leaves around them were all floating in the direction of Chun Guang at the same time. These leaves were wrapped in the wind and kept floating toward him. They gathered around him and spiraled up above his head, almost forming a tornado that swept up to the sky. What the hell is this? Jiang Yage was dumbfounded. Shi Lu's teeth were chattering from the wind. She had already suffered a great shock tonight, and she had to endure all the way here. Now, she had caught a cold, and the ground was covered in blood. Her willpower was still strong, and if it was someone else, they would have already given up. Jiang Yage reluctantly helped her up and sat on the ground with their backs against the tree. She couldn't care less about the muddy ground under them. Chun Guang also didn't expect that eating some soil would cause such a big commotion. Although it was a shallow meditation, it was only to guard against murderous aura and killing intent. As for the wind and rain, it wasn't within his scope of consideration. He didn't know that because of his crazy absorption of elemental energy, it caused a tornado to form around his body. This went on for more than half an hour before he finally stood up in a refreshed state. His inner force had recovered by more than half, and the Earthburster's ability was a great supplement. It was even more nourishing than when he swallowed Ouyang Tianqing's ability. Anyway, Chun Guang didn't want to leave a mouthful of soup for others to drink. He could absorb the earth elemental ability, and it was rare for him to be able to set up a stance. He might as well absorb it all, until the concentration of the earth elemental energy could no longer support his absorption, and he could barely feel its existence. At this time, he still didn't know that he had actually absorbed all the earth elemental energy in the surrounding thousands of miles. Elemental energy was different from air. It could be said to be invisible, but it was also tangible and much lighter than air. The range of the elemental energy that Chun Guang absorbed was huge. The earth elemental energy came from all directions at an extremely fast speed, many times faster than the speed of sound. However, the wind it brought was not that fierce, and it was a bit like electrolytic ions flowing through a solution. He stretched lazily and shouted, "Awesome!" Then he began to look around for Jiang Yage and Shi Lu, shouting, "We can't wait for them. Let's go back." 3 minutes later. F***CK. Curry, curry, curry. He ran under a big tree and dug away the thick layer of leaves that had almost piled up into a grave. He looked at the two girls hiding behind the tree with blue lips, hugging each other for warmth, but failed miserably and fainted from the cold. Chun Guang's heart ached so much that he couldn't breathe. What's suffering? Chapter 989. After a while, he transferred qi to the two of them, used his inner force to help them get rid of the frostbite in their bodies, and hurriedly used his earth ability to build a cave around the three of them to block the wind. Then, Chun Guang used the all-encompassing inner force of the true martial divine skill that could change attributes at will to form a flaming saber. He weakened the power and slashed at the extremely sturdy cave wall. "Eat the first form of my flaming saber. Eat the 77th form of my flaming saber." In short, the cave warmed up just like that. After about 10 minutes, Jiang Yage was the first to wake up. She opened her eyes in a daze. "Is this hell?" Nodding his head, Chun Guang responded, "That's right. This is the meat toilet hell. I'll have to trouble benefactor to raise your butt. You're winning. It's not convenient for me right now." Jiang Yage calmed down the moment she heard Chun Guang's voice. She shook her head and woke up. Then, she gave Master Guang a rude awakening. Chun Guang didn't want to speak anymore. "It's not convenient for you, and you're telling me you want to train. Are you going to perform a red fountain for me?" Jiang Yage was bashful. I just came a day early. It was frozen out." As she spoke, she touched Shi Lu's forehead. "Oh my God, it's so hot. It's at least 50 to 60 degrees. She's burning up so badly." "Shut up. If it's 50 to 60 degrees, it's almost done. Don't be so surprised. I just used the weakened version of the flaming saber to add some heat to the two of you. The heat hasn't dissipated yet." Jiang Yage nodded. "Okay, but aren't you afraid of being sued for copyright infringement? Isn't this Jiumaji's Kung Fu? Can you think of a more reliable name? Why do you even read the demigods and semi-demons? Why do you see through my nonsense every time? What's the name of the flaming saber?" Jiang Yage blinked. She realized that she was extremely curious about everything about Chun Guang. Even if it was just some random nonsense, it was still very attractive to her. He was like a black hole, sucking in all of her rationality. Too perfect, too handsome. How could there be such an impeccable man in this world? I'm so lucky to be born in this era and to be able to meet him at the best age. He just did not know if a martial arts master like him farted, would it smell good because the conception and governing vessels had been opened and there were no impurities in his body? Blarg. Chun Guang recalled the awkwardness of learning this martial art in the realm of true martial. He shook his head and said, Well, don't ask these useless questions. Say it, say it." Jiang Yage began to act coquettishly. The more he didn't want to talk about it, the more she wanted to know. Chun Guang blushed. "Don't laugh at me." "Okay, I swear I won't laugh." Chun Guang took a deep breath and said, "This move is called the Super Force Crimson Flame Floating Saber that can't lose to the Flaming Saber." Damn, the martial emperor who developed this martial art in the realm of true martial must be a retard. Huh, puff. I won't laugh. I really won't laugh. Jiang Yage was stunned for a few seconds and began to beat her chest and stamped her feet. She really did it. She really endured it, but her chest was almost hammered flat. Chun Guang sighed. In fact, the retarded martial art he learned in the realm of true martial was far more than this. He also had 10 unique skills. Just by saying the names, he could make 1 Buddha born and 2 Buddhas go to heaven. Okay? Forget it. It's not important. Well, if there's nothing else, let's go. I'll carry Shi Lu. Although she should be fine, it's better to go to the hospital. Just as he was about to leave, there was a loud noise outside. Chen Guang pricked up his ears and listened. He stopped Jiang Yage again and signaled for her not to act rashly. Indeed, people came, but it was not the armed police or the armed police. The faint human voice drifted in from outside. It was the voice of Fortune Monger. Like father, like son, Bao Thinsong had become a malignant tumor, and his father, Fortune Monger, was to blame. This time, Bao Thinsong even kidnapped Jiang Yage, but Fortune Monger still braced himself and brought people to deal with the aftermath. However, he was only here to collect his son's corpse. Boss, what situation is this? Why are there so many wolf corpses? Ma Song, why are you asking me? How would I know? My God, what the hell is going on? Why is there such a huge wolf pack? There are at least hundreds of corpses here, right? Boss, there are no bullet holes on these wolves' bodies, and there are no knife marks either. It's a bit like what? It's like they were torn apart by a terrifying force, or crushed to death. The ones here are even worse. They've all been smashed into pieces, as if they were thrown into a meat grinder. That's not the most important thing. F***CK. These wolves are really big. Silver wolves. My God, Ma Song, why are there silver wolves here? And they've even been torn into two. This silver wolf is almost the size of a horse. As the local tyrant of Whitewater River, Fortune Sack had heard many stories about wolves from the older generation. Silver wolves were a mutated breed that only appeared once in 100 years. Once they matured, they would be extremely ferocious and powerful. Furthermore, they had astonishing intelligence and were extremely cunning. But what he saw now was the corpse of the Silver Wolf King, who had died a terrible death. Ma Song also leaned over and sucked in a breath of cold air. Fortune Monger stomped his feet anxiously. Quickly search the vicinity. There might have been a very terrifying battle between beasts here. I don't know what happened to Bao Song. Boss, there's a very strange mound over there. Why do you care about the mound? Find him for me. Gu, didn't you say you're the most familiar with the situation in the mountains? Come, tell me what's going on. Fortune Monger pulled a shifty-eyed skinny man in plain clothes in front of him. The one who could make them rush here more than an hour earlier was this veteran hunter surnamed Gu, Zi's uncle. At this moment, this hunter surnamed Gu was stunned. Boss Monger, I don't know either. If not for the fact that he could not afford to offend this group of people, Gu would have run away long ago. As a hunter, he knew very well how terrifying this scene was. The Silver Wolf King was a terrifying beast that could even contend with tigers, not to mention its huge size. Yet, it had died such a terrible death. This could only mean that the monster that slaughtered the wolf pack was 10 times scarier than the wolf pack. This was completely beyond his understanding. He even felt that the monster might have become a spirit, just like what was written in the supernatural novels. Perhaps it had something to do with the smooth mound that should not have appeared in the forest. Gu was definitely a genius. He could even buy a lottery ticket because he had guessed it correctly. Boss, found it. Over here. At this moment, there was a scream from further away. Fortune Monger pulled Gu along and ran towards the source of the scream. A minute later, a heart-wrenching scream resounded through the forest. Son, you died so tragically. My son, this is a gunshot wound. Who is it? Who is it? I want to tear him to pieces. Bastard. Bastard. Fortune Monger roared crazily as he knelt in front of Wang Insong's corpse, his hands desperately slapping the muddy water in front of him. He did not look like a billionaire boss at all. He had turned into an old man who had lost a loved one. However, he did not deserve any sympathy at all. The cause that he had sown had now borne this fruit. If Wang Insong had not pushed Shi Lu into the wolf pack, if he had not fired at Shi Lu from behind, attempting to use Shi Lu's flesh and blood as bait, as long as he was willing to kneel down and beg for mercy, and Shi Lu had not suffered any physical harm, Chen Guang might not have taken his life. Perhaps he would have become a eunuch and suffer for the rest of his life. However, it was his repeated mistakes that pushed him into the abyss, causing Chen Guang to no longer see him as a human being and mercilessly erase his life. However, when a person makes a decision, their personality is the main factor. The nurturing of a person's personality and the environment provided by their parents are the main factors. Wang and Song could be said to have died in the hands of Chen Guang, but it could also be said that he had died in the hands of fortune monger himself. There were many rich second-generation heirs in the world, and there were even people like Lin Jingwei, who were second-generation heirs. However, not all of them were so deceitful. Fortune monger's cries were so loud that even Jiang Yage, who was far away, could hear them clearly. "He's going to tear you into pieces. What should we do? He's crying so miserably. Serve him right." I'm not bragging, but I reckon that by the time the people sent by Grandpa find out, this father and son pair will have killed at least 2 digits of people. Do you believe me? Jiang Yage said casually. She was not afraid at all. The hardest part had passed. Jiang Yage really did not think that Fortune Monger and his group could pose any threat to her. "Hey, why aren't you saying anything?" Chen Guang finally moved. He got up and walked forward. "I was just thinking about something." "What is it? To kill or not to kill?" "Forget it. I have to remove the roots when cutting weeds. In any case, it's not a good thing. If he really uses a few billion to throw at me, it'll be quite annoying." Jiang Yage knew that Chen Guang was going to start a massacre again. Actually, she felt that this might not be a good idea. Chen Guang's hands were stained with too much blood today. However, she was already sick of the father and son pair of the Bao family. She also knew that if they really wanted to pay with their lives, the father and son pair of the Bao family should have died 10 or even 100 times. She had casually asked old Jiang on the phone before. The history of Fortune Monger's rise was indeed quite bloody. However, there were people who supported him in the past and helped him get away with it. He was also very influential in Baishui County, so it was difficult for the higher-ups to make up their minds to deal with him. Jiang Yage was actually quite annoyed by this. She also could not stand the routine of finding a balance in the political and business circles. Since there were laws, they should be abided by. It was only right to pay with one's life. No matter how rich or how powerful the other party was, there should be a price for doing bad things. However, Huaxia was a complicated society. Many people who committed crimes did not receive the punishment they deserved. Jiang Yage could especially understand why Chen Guang lost his job as the director of the Guangdong General Administration. With his temper, if he really continued to do this, he would be disgusted to death sooner or later. It was even possible that he had seen too many shady things and was angered. If that happened, his grandfather and the others would really have to stand against him. Suddenly, like a ghost, Chen Guang appeared in front of Fortune Monger without warning with his hands behind his back. Between them was Dan and Song's corpse. "I heard that you want to tear my body into pieces. Well, I'm here. Why don't you show me?" Chen Guang looked down at Moneybags without any expression on his face. Ma Song, who was standing behind him, froze. He did not understand how this guy had appeared. A moment ago, there was no one where he was standing, and the next moment, he was talking with his hands behind his back. Although the back of his head was facing him, Ma Song felt that he was being stared at by the back of his head. If he moved even a little, he would die. "Chen Guang, did you do it?" Hatred and grief made Fortune Monger forget his fear of martial artists for a moment. He raised his head and stared angrily at Chen Guang, roaring. Chen Guang nodded. "That's right, I did it. I also killed these wolves." And then, as he spoke, he paused and said helplessly, "Actually, I'm a very reasonable person most of the time. However, it seems that I can't reason with you this time. So, I hope that you will remember today's lesson when you cross the bridge of helplessness. If you have a next life, remember to be a good person in your next life and teach your son well." Chen Guang suddenly laughed. He rarely laughed like this. This was because he wanted to hide his inner thoughts. If he had a choice, he would not want to kill. However, there were always people who had to die in this world. Chapter 990. Following Chen Guang's smile, the already chilly late autumn forest suddenly became even colder. Even Jiang Yage, who was peeking in from afar, shuddered and scratched her head. "That's weird. Why is it so cold?" Fortune Monger and the others beside Chen Guang could feel it even more clearly. Their teeth chattered as if cold water had been poured over their heads. Fortune Monger, who was furious just a moment ago, immediately sobered up. Fortune Monger thought of the thing that had once left him with an indelible nightmare. He thought of the table that Chun Guang had smashed into pieces that day, and the distance between the two of them. He suddenly woke up. Since his son and his accomplices had died under Chun Guang's hands, then Chun Guang most likely had a gun in his hands. Interforce martial artists were one of the most terrifying existences in the world. How terrifying would an interforce martial artist with a gun be? Fortune Monger didn't know, and he didn't want to experience it. But now this person was standing in front of him, about to take his life in the next moment. Chun Guang, listen to me. Fortune Monger couldn't care less about his son's corpse. He leaned back and sat on the ground. His legs slowly moved across the muddy ground. As he spoke, he tried to calm Chun Guang down, and, at the same time, he wanted to quietly distance himself. As for avenging his son, he couldn't care less. Saving his own life was the most important thing. Chun Guang raised his hands and looked straight at Fortune Monger. He still had that strange smile on his face. He slowly raised his right hand and looked at the miserable Fortune Monger, but there was no change in his emotions. Since he had decided to make a move, it was like an arrow leaving the bow. There was no turning back. He didn't want his soft-heartedness to ruin things. He was deliberately trying to return to the state of mind of the true martial saint emperor. Although he wasn't bloodthirsty, he saw mortals as ants. As long as he stood on the side of justice, he could control the life and death of others. He didn't need to worry about anything. He just needed to kill to avenge himself. Do it. On the other side, Fortune Sack took advantage of the brief moment when Chun Guang had yet to make a move to quietly widen the distance between the two of them by 4 to 5 meters. He then abruptly roared at Ma Song, who was behind Chun Guang. At this time, although Ma Song was still scared to death, he was the captain of Moneybag's bodyguards and the publicly recognized #1 thug of the Tong Yuan group. Back when he was a soldier, he was also a good fighter in the army. After all, he had been on the battlefield, had some skills, and had seen the world. Ma Song regained his clarity. He gritted his teeth and roared, "Kill!" He used almost all the strength in his body to throw the big guy in front of him. He grabbed it tightly with both hands, aimed at Chun Guang's back, and pulled the trigger crazily. Although the others who were standing a little further away were slower than Ma Song, they still took out their weapons after Ma Song. For a moment, sparks flew in all directions, and dense gunshots resounded throughout the forest. Moneybag, who was a few meters away from Chun Guang, finally extricated himself from his fear. He cracked his mouth and laughed hysterically. "So what if you're a martial arts master? I don't believe you won't die." Although the beautiful woman had raised her hand to kill people last time, it was because she had moved too quickly and did not give them time to react. After all, Chun Guang was still young. Although his strength was amazing, he lacked the experience of the dangerous Jiang Hu. He had been careless. This time, he should be dead, right? Moneybag thought as he raised his head and looked in the direction of Chun Guang. The next moment, he was stunned. Previously, when Dan and Song fought against Chun Guang, he used 3 pistols, and the bullets were fixed in the air by his internal energy. Now, Moneybag was carrying a big guy with a long pipe, but the result was not much better. Ma Song and the rest were still frantically firing at Chun Guang. However, a cloud of dust suddenly exploded around Chun Guang before the bullets, that flickered with a metallic luster, fell to the ground one after another. After looking twice, Moneybag was sure that his eyes were not playing tricks on him. He did not know how he did it, but when every bullet was about to reach him, it was blocked by the mud that appeared without warning in its flight path. What kind of monstrous ability is this? Am I dreaming? Clicking sounds came from a submachine gun in Ma Song's hand. He had already emptied an entire magazine. But in front of him, Chun Guang still did not turn around. He was still standing there with his right hand raised. Not to mention blood and wounds, his clothes were not dirty. Ma Song was 100% sure that although he did not hit every time, at least 90% of his bullets should have landed on this guy's body. Not to mention killing him, he wouldn't even be able to make him blink or turn his head. Monster. This is a monster. He's not human. Devil. Moneybag, The most loyal bodyguards continuously emptied their bullets, but it was all in vain. Their minds were blank, and everything that was happening in front of them was beyond their understanding. As someone who had seen the methods of an inner force martial artist, Moneybag was more shocked than the others. As a hero of the pugilistic world, Chun Guang's methods were many times stronger than that woman's. Just like how it was written in wuxia novels, the woman could only live in the worldview of the deer and the cauldron. However, Chun Guang was definitely a character from before demigods and semi-devils. He had almost jumped from Jin Yang's novel to Huang Yi's worldview. Why am I so unlucky? Isn't it good for me to be a local tyrant in Bai Shui? Why did I provoke such a monster? Why did I want to tear him to pieces? Just how big is my heart? That's not right. We've been minding our own business. They only came to Bai Shui County to film, and I only needed to cooperate with them. I could also ask them to help me advertise my new building. But why did things turn out like this? Unknowingly, Moneybag felt his body become very light, and he slowly floated into the air. Chun Guang was still standing in the same spot, his right hand still raised, far away from him. But Moneybag felt that someone was strangling his neck, and the strength was increasing. His breathing became more and more difficult. Not only him, but the accomplices he brought were also struggling with all their might. It was as if an invisible hand was strangling them, and they floated into the air bit by bit. Only Hunter Gu, who was kneeling on the ground with weak legs, looked on listlessly. He thought that he would be like the others. Moneybag's head drooped slightly, and when he saw Wan Song's corpse on the ground, he finally came to his senses. Yes, it was because of this son of his that he had wanted to hit on Jiang Yage from the beginning, and that was why he had dragged him into yesterday's dinner. In the end, things had gone sour during the dinner, and he had embarrassed himself. Then, even though he had already realized that the situation was not good, he had warned him to behave and had even placed him under house arrest. But today he had been released by that prodigal woman, and now things had finally come to this. Perhaps I should have listened to County Head Who. If I had made up my mind to sacrifice myself earlier, if I hadn't said such reckless words when I found my stupid son's corpse, perhaps I could have really lived on. If my son is gone, I can have another one, and I still have an illegitimate son. But if I die as well, then all my troubles will be over. The restraint on his neck loosened a little, and Moneybag could finally speak. I regret it so much. He regretted that he had been so lenient toward Wan Song, and even more regretted that he had not taken this matter seriously. At first, he had only treated it as a simple case of Wan Song's willfulness. Later, when he realized that something was wrong, he had not really made up his mind to restrain his son. I know that you regret it. Chun Guang put his hands behind his back. If I hadn't provoked you this time, would you not have killed me? Chun Guang smiled. Not necessarily. If I had found out about what you had done through other channels, perhaps I would have been unhappy and you would still have died. But if I didn't know anything, then forget it. Why do you like to meddle in other people's business? I'm happy to. Chun Guang shrugged nonchalantly. Then he suddenly clenched his fist. Blood splattered everywhere, and the Bao father and son, as well as Tong Yuan's forces, who had been tyrannical in Bai Shui County for many years, were completely annihilated. His wealth of hundreds of millions did not allow him to live another second. Jiang Yage had also seen too much blood today, and her nerves had become thick. Seeing the situation, she jogged over. I thought you guys still wanted to talk. Rolling his eyes, Chun Guang replied, You can't give too many lines for the antagonist. Otherwise, what if someone explodes and I kill them? That's true. Jiang Yage held his hand. Then let's go back now. Wait for a while. Someone will be coming soon. They still want to kill people? What are you thinking? This time, it's our own people. While the two of them were talking, the lights on the other side of the mountain in the distance lit up. A helicopter rumbled as it flipped over, its bright spotlights sweeping around the forest. Very soon, it discovered the abnormality here. Then it turned around and sped up to fly over. Chun Guang and Jiang Yage went to the sand dune house to wait. Standing outside, it was chilly. Chun Guang was not afraid, but Jiang Yage might not be able to withstand it. The helicopter found an empty space nearby and landed. Special forces armed with live ammunition filed out, then jogged all the way over. When they arrived, even the battle-hardened elites of the army were stunned by the sight of the corpses on the ground. Whether it was the dead giant mutated wolf on the ground, or the mangled bodies of Fortune Sack and his men, or the 9 men with holes in their foreheads, they all gave the dense forest a strange and terrifying smell of blood after the rain. This scene was simply too terrifying, too absurd. "We are here." When the soldiers got closer, Jiang Yage instinctively wanted to get up and greet them. However, Chen Guang stopped her. "Don't be anxious. These people are still very nervous now. If you jump out rashly, what if you scare them and they shoot you?" Before he could finish his sentence, the Special Forces soldiers who had already heard the commotion turned around nervously. They gestured to each other and then disappeared into the forest. They formed a jungle battle formation and approached quietly but quickly. Chen Guang pressed Jiang Yage into the sand dune and walked out himself. Okay, relax a little. I'm Chen Guang. I've saved the hostages." Just as he finished speaking, a few soldiers with cold expressions stood out from hiding, their guns aimed at him, as if they were facing a formidable enemy. They clearly did not let down their guard. Chapter 991. "You're Chen Guang?" "Nonsense. Isn't Chen Guang a big bald head? Aren't Deng Xiaojing's crew over there? Who the hell are you? Raise your hands." Obviously, these soldiers didn't know that Chen Guang had come over. They were too nervous to recognize Chen Guang. Slap. The soldier who spoke was slapped on the back of his head. Then a wretched-looking, skinny, middle-aged man stepped out from the crowd and came forward with a straight face. Mr. Director, I was wondering why the scene was so bloody. I didn't expect you to be here. I understand now. All of you put down your guns. You're pointing your guns at the chief of the Guangding General Headquarters. Are you trying to rebel?" When Chen Guang turned around, he saw a fellow with a sallow complexion that was brimming with vigor. He didn't expect to meet an acquaintance here. It was the leader of the Xinqing faction, Dai Quan. It seemed that after his resignation, the relationship between the Guangding General Headquarters and the higher-ups was getting closer and closer. Since he took the plane with these Special Forces soldiers, he should have been in the military base from the beginning. "Chief, you've worked hard. Are you okay? Hey, look at my stupid mouth. You'll be fine even if the sky falls. Hey, I say, why are you guys still so nervous? Relax, all of you relax for me. Our chief is here. Do you need to make such a fuss?" Interrupting Dai Quan's words, Chen Guang continued, "All right, stop trying to intimidate me. I'm no longer your chief. Don't bring your tricks to work. Jiang Yage, come out." Jiang Yage had wanted to come out long ago. She wanted to teach this group of Special Forces soldiers a lesson. But Chen Guang calmed her down. "All right, control yourself. They're here to save you, and they mean well." When the Special Forces soldiers saw Jiang Yage, they completely relaxed and calmed down. Chen Guang thought about it and decided not to greet Dai Quan. Instead, he carried the unconscious Shi Lu onto the helicopter and asked Jiang Yage to follow the helicopter. "I'm not leaving. All right, you've also caught a cold. Let's go to the hospital for a checkup. If necessary, get a transfusion to prevent any sequelae. Getting a cold during menstruation doesn't seem too good. What if it affects the filming?" Jiang Yage was stunned. "You're still filming?" Chen Guang shrugged. "Why not? Only Shi Lu was affected. Big Beard and the others didn't know what was going on here. The crew's daily expenses are more or less hundreds of thousands of yuan. We should save as much as we can." Jiang Yage thought about it and realized that it was reasonable. Of the entire crew, only Shi Lu was frightened, but she was not the main creator, so it did not affect the filming. Although something had happened tonight, the Earth still had to keep turning, right? She was really insensitive and had a strong endurance. Today's incident did not leave any psychological trauma on her. "Then I'll leave first." Yes. Hurry up and get Big Beard to arrange for people to wait in the county. Your manager, Zhou Yun, is in the county? Yes. That's good. Take care of Shi Lu, too. You're attracted to someone. Knocking on Jiang Yage's head, Chen Guang replied, "Move your ass. Someone else became a scapegoat for you, and that's why they're in this mess. I feel bad about it, all right?" Jiang Yage was amused. She looked at him happily. You feel bad for someone else because of me? Chen Guang was indignant. Of course. This is basic human behavior, okay? The soldier turned around and urged, Director Chen, Miss Jiang, how much longer? After confirming Chen Guang's identity, the attitude of these soldiers towards Chen Guang took a 180-degree turn. They were now respectful. As for Chen Guang, the chief instructor of Shen's special training camp, when Chen Guang was still in his honeymoon period with the old patriarchs, whether it was learning about the political mission or passing it on by word of mouth, it was widely spread in the military. It was just that Chen Guang had a shiny bald head when he appeared in front of the camera for a long time. His bald head was so distinctive that many soldiers who did not pay attention to popular news didn't know that his hair had grown back. That was why they didn't recognize him just now. Watching Jiang Yage and Shi Lu board the military helicopter, Chen Guang pulled Dai Quan with a grim expression. Faction leader Dai, what do you think of these wolves? Dai Quan looked around. The other special forces soldiers who did not follow the military helicopter were holding cameras and flashlights, checking the dead bodies one by one. These people frowned from time to time, and then secretly looked at Chen Guang with slightly fearful eyes. Then, they quickly pretended to be nonchalant and continued to check the scene. These bastards. All right, keep it in. I'm asking you about the wolves. Director Chen, don't call me faction leader. I can't take it. Keep it in. Brother Chen, in my opinion, there must be something fishy about this. Dai Quan finally became honest. Although it was a little inappropriate to call Chen Guang brother Cheng at his age, in the underworld, the strongest had the final say. It was not a big deal, even if he called Chen Guang brother Cheng. Can't you show some professionalism? Truth be told, Chen Guang knew everything about the mutated wolves, but he had a deeper meaning behind asking Dai Quan about it. You want to know if these giant mutated wolves were difficult to deal with in the eyes of an experienced veteran like Dai Quan. Chen Guang had a faint worry that irreversible changes had already happened. Since he had encountered a giant mutated wolf here today, maybe there were mutated bears, mutated tigers, or even mutated humans in other places. Animals could mutate, and of course, humans could also be mutated. Chen Guang could not help but think of one thing. The thief who smashed Wu Tong's bones with a mobile phone, and then suddenly died while in custody. Of course, it would hurt when a mobile phone hit a person's body, but under the circumstances of such a close distance, it was still a bit too exaggerated to break the bones of a well-trained elite police officer like Wu Tong on the spot. As for the person's sudden death, it was even more inexplicable. Unfortunately, Chen Guang did not pay attention to it at that time, and did not follow Wu Tong to check the body. Now that he thought about it, it could be said that it was extremely terrifying. It was very likely that the thief had mutated like the pack of wolves, allowing him to explode his potential in a short period of time and use strength far beyond that of an ordinary person. However, his body's functions could not keep up with his mutation, and after overexerting his physical strength, his organs rapidly dried up, and he finally died in custody. Linking these two events together, if his guess was correct, then it could prove one thing. The concentration of the power of the Holy Grail on Earth was enough to cause other creatures to mutate without opening the world and the cup. Although Chen Guang could not be sure and had not come to a conclusion, he felt that he had to pay attention to it. It would be best if he was overthinking, but if it really happened, then he had to think about how to deal with the situation. He himself was invincible, and any mutated creature was nothing but dust in front of him. However, he was only one person after all, and did not have the ability or energy to shine like the sun. Of course, it was extremely difficult for ordinary people to deal with mutated creatures, and the risk was extremely high. If he had to rely on someone, Chen Guang felt that he could only rely on an inner force martial artist. Seeing Chen Guang's serious expression, Dai Quan calmed himself down and squatted next to the Silver Wolf King's corpse. He bent down and carefully examined it. This guy was unusually large, and his strength must be amazing, but he died a little too miserably. I was the one who tore it into two with my bare hands, and at that time, I used about 1/10 of my strength. Dai Quan's body trembled. 1/10? Chen Guang shrugged. All right, 1/10. then this wolf is very powerful. Yes, this wolf can also spit out silver light from its mouth, which is no different from a hidden weapon. Its power is probably equivalent to the special sniper rifle bullets you have seen in individual military exercises. Brother Chun, according to what you said, with my ability in close combat, I can probably deal with 2 to 3 of these wolves, no more than that. Although the people of Xinqing sect are not good at fighting, Dai Quan, should be in the top 100 in the police force. I understand, Chen Guang replied. The two chatted casually, and not long after, the other 2 helicopters and Baishui County's armed police arrived one after another. The ground was covered in blood, and County Magistrate Hu and the other officials, who were wearing leather shoes, were vomiting nonstop. The weaker police officers were not much better. Looking at the miserable state of the Bao father and son, County Magistrate Hu had known them for many years, could not help but feel sad. Tragic, this is really tragic. The chubby county magistrate who looked at Chen Guang, who was inspecting the wolf corpses with Dai Quan, and his heart was chilled to the bone. Fortunately, this incident happened too quickly, and he did not have time to drag Fortune Monk into this mess. Yesterday, he had received a call from the higher-ups, and he had also talked to a few police chiefs in the county who might have dragged Bao and Song into this mess, especially the people from the Scenic Area Police Station. No one had made any unforgivable mistakes. The heavens were truly watching over them. Fortunately, the hostage was fine and was still alive and kicking. Although he did not know why, there was another minor actor who seemed to be in a bad condition. As long as Jiang Yage was fine, everything was fine. It seemed that he did not have to run anymore. Mr. Chun, why don't you go back and rest first? We will cooperate with the military personnel to clean up the aftermath, and we will definitely give you a satisfactory explanation. Chen Guang turned to look at County Magistrate, who, not interested in talking to him. The Bao father and son had been domineering in Baishui County for so many years, and, as the local official, it was impossible for Fatty Hu not to have some illicit relations with them. The incident happened in a hurry, and old Jiang only called 3 helicopters. However, the top military and political leaders of Kainan province must have already taken action secretly, together with the investigation team that set off overnight the night before yesterday. They must have sent a large number of troops to the border by tomorrow morning at the latest. By that time, the official earthquake in Baishui County would almost begin. At that time, Fatty Hu would be the first to bear the brunt. The rest would be dealt with one by one, and no one would be able to escape. It's just a small problem. It's fine as long as she's fine. You guys have nothing to explain to me anyway, so you can continue with your work. Dai Quan, come with me over there. I have something to tell you. Chen Guang dismissed the chubby county magistrate who then pulled Dai Quan aside and instructed him with a solemn expression. You must go back and explain everything clearly to the 2 deputy directors, including the methods of these strange wolves that I just told you. Remember them all. Okay, don't let your guard down. This matter can be big or small. Understood. You have to help the 2 deputy directors. If the situation that I'm most worried about really happens, I'm afraid. Afraid of what? I'm afraid that no one in this world can stay out of trouble. Chapter 992. Chen Guang added another sentence in his heart. His sin was so great that there was no limit to it. Dai Quan sucked in a breath of cold air. It's that serious? Actually, in the records of our sect's inheritance, there have been many ferocious beasts that have appeared since ancient times. This is different. Dai Quan nodded. I understand. Then I'll leave first. All right, take care. Don't worry about the matters here. I'm here on behalf of the Guangdong Bureau. I'm the highest commander here, so I can handle it. That's good. Chen Guang quickly disappeared into the dense forest. He planned to go to the tent camp to get the cup, then follow them to the hospital in Baishui County. He sped all the way, his speed not much slower than a helicopter flying in the sky. His expression was somewhat heavy. Although he had killed countless people tonight, and the result could be considered okay. Shilu was safe and sound, the father and son of the Bao family were completely dead, and the entire crew was in a false alarm. No one was hurt, and perhaps the green mountains and clear waters of Baishui County could be restored, he could not feel happy. He could not help but imagine an overwhelming number of mutated monsters, mutated tigers, lions, wolves, black bears, and even all kinds of domesticated animals. There might even be insects like mosquitoes, flies, fleas, and crickets attacking humans in a frenzy. Or it could be like the thief. Some ordinary people with poor self-control suddenly obtained a power beyond their understanding and could not extricate themselves from it. They relied on their superior abilities to do evil, lawless, and disrupted the social order. No matter which of the two situations happened, it could be said to be a catastrophic result that affected the entire human race. This would cause chaos in the entire social order, and who knew how much blood would be shed and how many people would die before order could be restored. That scene was simply like a Hollywood doomsday movie. Thinking about this, how could Chen Guang feel relaxed in his heart? I'm still a good person after all. Who would have thought that the power of the Holy Grail leaking out from a broken cup could not only look cool, but also cause other creatures to mutate? What can I do? I'm also in despair. The cup is just there, and I can't stop the power of the Holy Grail from increasing in the outside world. Forget it. Even if I have to risk being beaten to death by Lioli, I have to go back and ask her for a solution. This can't go on. I have to do something. Chen Guang thought of utopia during the Second Punishment World. At that time, the world in the cup had completely merged with the real world. Under the incomparably abundant Earth elemental energy, everyone in utopia had mutated. If the concentration of the power of the Holy Grail continued to increase, there was no guarantee that such a situation wouldn't occur in the future. My heart is so tired and aching. I'm just a cute little handsome guy. I just want to happily learn skills and act cool. Then, I'll build a statue and gain faith. Then, I'll pass through World and Cup 1 after another while lying down. If he could survive until he completed 3,000 missions without dying of old age, he might be able to smoothly become a god and save Azure, the unlucky god emperor, from the cup. When he became a god, he would be able to ascend to the heavens. He would be able to enlighten all the girls that he liked, had a good relationship with, or were beautiful and cute, so that everyone could enjoy happiness with him. If his luck was better in the future, he might even be able to go to the endless divine realm and be patted on the shoulder by the great god of chaos. Young man, thank you for saving my daughter. I can satisfy all your wishes. Then he would be able to happily lie down in the god realm as a god emperor. He would have billions of cute girls, and he would be able to make friends with a few goddesses all day long, and so on. I don't want much. Don't mess with me like this. I really don't want to drag all of humanity down with me. I also don't want to create a scene as big as the end of the world. This pot is too big, too heavy. The old man can't bear it. With this thought in mind, Chen Guang first contacted the bearded man and confirmed that they had already arrived at the hotel in the scenic area. He also helped them pack up their belongings in the tent. Then, he rushed back to the hotel at a speed that was even faster than when he was rescuing Lioli. Without another word, he grabbed his bag and prepared to hide in the toilet to have a calm conversation with Lioli. Sigh. Chen Guang, wait a minute. Seeing that Chen Guang was about to close the toilet door, Big Beard hurriedly stopped him from outside. What? I plan to bring some people to the county to visit Shilu. What about you? Are they all right? Chen Guang thought for a moment. Jiang Yage is fine, but Shilu might have caught a cold. Wait for me for a minute. Find a good car. I'll drive you there after I come out of the toilet. He had thought about it. It was better not to tell anyone about his massacre today. When Shilu woke up, Jiang Yage would also tell her about it. Although the people he killed were people who deserved to be killed, this kind of thing was still a little scary in the eyes of ordinary people. It was fine as long as it was over. There was no need to make a big deal out of it. Otherwise, if the filming couldn't continue, the past 2 months of effort would have been wasted. Big Beer nodded. Okay. By the way, you're not hurt, are you? Are you kidding me? It's not that I'm bragging to you, but even if your friend Shi Changhe used the purple and green dual swords in Heroes of Shushan a few years ago to stab me in the armpit, I would still be able to clamp them. I'm not talking to you anymore. I'm in a hurry. When Chen Guang finished speaking, he slammed the toilet door shut. Big Beard raised his hand to say something, but he was a step too slow. He scratched his head and said, "The cup of water. You want me to hold it for you? That's not very nice." 30 seconds later, Chun Guang opened the door. Big Beard jumped back. "You? Who are you?" "It's me." "Cut the crap. Let's go. Let's go to the county." Big Beard's eyes widened. He pointed at Chun Guang's head, which was obviously twice as big. "But your head, it's okay. Don't mind the details." Chun Guang didn't want to pay attention to him. He hit his face and walked out. His fingers accidentally touched the corner of his mouth, and he grimaced in pain. Big Beardy looked at his back, and his mind was filled with O'Neill's big question mark. He muttered to himself, "What the hell? It's only been a few seconds, and there's no sound at all. How'd he get hurt like this? Also, what happened to the armpit catching the purple and green dual swords? Did you use your face to catch Sun Wukong's Jingu Bang?" Chun Guang, who was walking in front, recalled the encounter just now. He was really angry. Damn, Lu Li's hand is really ruthless. He felt that if it wasn't for the super active Mother Earth explosive ability in the world in the cup, he wouldn't have been beaten half to death. Wait, this doesn't seem to be good news. The stronger my recovery ability, the more difficult it is for me to die. Isn't it easier for her to beat me up? Am I not the highest level human sandbag in the world? What the F***CK? No wonder she was so ruthless just now. Wasn't it because she knew she couldn't beat me to death? Forget it. Just let me die. Chun Guang subconsciously wanted to cover his forehead to express his condolences. His hand was about to touch it when he remembered there was a bag on his head. He was angry, but there was nothing he could do. Today's beating was in vain. Let's go back to a minute ago, from a moment Chun Guang entered the world in the cup. "You're finally here. I thought you could hide outside for the rest of your life." The sound of bones cracking could be heard. "Sister Lu Li, listen to my explanation." Bang. "If you hit me again, I'll fight back." Bang, bang. "I really fought back." Bang, bang, bang. "I thought we were friends." "We'll be friends when I calm down." Deer Cry grew a super long leaf and fanned Lu Li. "That's right. Sister Lu Li, you're tired, right? Come and cool down." Chun Guang didn't know how much time had passed outside, but he felt that he had at least endured a century in the world in the cup. Actually, when he first came in and saw Lu Li, who had once again turned into an African miss, he knew that he wouldn't have it easy this time. In short, no matter how difficult it was, he had finally endured it. The most infuriating thing was that he couldn't get the power of the Holy Grail from the outside world. At that time, he communicated with Lu Li, who had finally calmed down. "Sister Lu Li, anyway, you're not angry anymore. Can we talk about some serious matters? The situation is really urgent." "Go ahead. You saw the power of the Holy Grail from the outside world, right?" "I know. I also met a mutated creature with elemental abilities today." "I know too." "Then why is this happening?" "You triggered the realm of punishment twice, and the world in the cup fused with the real world twice. Although the fusion was dissolved afterwards, there was a connection between the two worlds, so the power of the Holy Grail kept leaking out." "Two worlds? What the hell? I forgot to tell you. When you triggered the realm of punishment, it was a special world in the Holy Grail called the Real World that was created for you after it completely fused with your world. The level of this real world is the same as the realm of life. There are a total of 9 special worlds that are on the same level as the realm of life and the real world." "Damn, there's such bad luck. Why didn't you say so earlier? You wouldn't understand even if I told you." "Forget it. Then why would the power of the Holy Grail leak?" "Oh no, leak. I don't know either. If I could figure out the secret of this broken cup, would I still be locked up here?" "That's true. Is there any way to remedy this?" "There isn't. Stop messing around. You're a God Emperor. I'm just a God Emperor locked up in the Holy Grail." "Thank you. Then I can only watch helplessly?" "Congratulations, you got it right, but there's no reward." "Then if the power of the Holy Grail continues to increase in the outside world, when will a large number of mutated creatures appear?" "I don't know. Then what else do you know? Tell me what I should do now." Liuli smiled calmly. "I'll leave you with a sentence. Everything will work out when it comes to it. You've learned to answer first. Let me add another sentence for you. Everything will work out when it comes to it." In any case, Chen Guang suffered for nothing and came out with a bitter smile. To have met such an unreliable god emperor, yet he hadn't been killed by her yet. His zodiac sign must be that of a cockroach. Squinting his swollen eyes while driving at lightning speed, Chen Guang looked at the distant skyline and thought to himself, forget it. Since things have come to this, there's no point in begging for help. I can only do as Liu Li said and take things one step at a time. If it's a blessing, it's not a curse. If it's a curse, it can't be avoided. Since I can't resist it, I might as well close my eyes and enjoy the torture of life. If the sky is really going to fall, since it's all my fault, I'll just brace myself and bear it. Otherwise, what else can I do? Big Beard Deng, who was sitting in the front passenger seat, turned to look at Chen Guang, then tilted his head back. Damn, this swelling is going down too fast. Are you a 1,000-year-old Yunnan white herb that has gained sentience? When the car arrived at the county hospital and got off, Big Beard looked at Chen Guang again, only to find that his son's swollen head had completely recovered. Chen Guang, you, uncle, don't look at me like that. I know I'm very handsome now. Chapter 993. Big Beard was full of doubts. He didn't know if he had lost his memory or if he was seeing things. Yang Shi and Old Ma, the field manager, were sitting in the back row. When they got on the car, Chen Guang was already sitting in the driver's seat. The two of them didn't look at Chen Guang up close like Big Beard did, so they didn't know what was going on. Instead, they felt that Big Beard was a little embarrassed. When they arrived at the ward, Jiang Yage was already asleep on the accompanying bed, while Shilu was also sleeping with a glucose drip. The four of them didn't disturb their rest, but pulled the attending doctor on duty to inquire about them. Jiang Yage's physique was as tough as her nerves. She fainted from the cold during her menstrual period, and after she recovered, there was no abnormality. It seemed that the dance and fitness she had done in order to maintain her figure had not been in vain. Shilu, on the other hand, was a little weak after being shocked and suffering from a cold. She needed a rest for 2 days. Mishi woke up once before. Her body is fine, but she seems to have suffered a lot of stimulation. Her mental state is a little unstable. The doctor also knew Deng Xiaojing. Director Deng is really a responsible director. It's already early in the morning, but he still personally came to care about the patient's condition. Big Beard blushed from the praise. He thought to himself, how could I not come? One was Jiang Yage, and the other was his old friend's niece. No matter who it was, they were not ordinary artists. He chuckled and nodded repeatedly. It's good that you're fine. That's good. The doctor continued, I really didn't expect a big star like Jiang Yage to be willing to accompany others in the hospital. No wonder my child is so infatuated with her. I used to think that celebrity artists were very arrogant. What a considerate and gentle girl. You flatter me. Chen Guang and the others chatted with the doctor for a while and then walked out of the door. At this time, Zhou Yun was helping Jiang Yage out of the ward. She scolded, My lady, how could you sleep in the hospital? If someone finds out, you'll be surrounded by the whole hospital tomorrow morning. The doctor beside Chen Guang and the others also scratched his head and said, Actually, I tried to persuade Miss Jiang to find another place to rest, but she said that you asked her to take good care of the patient, so she refused to leave. Jiang Yage looks up at Chen Guang in a daze. She feels refreshed. Chen Guang, you're here. Chill. Lower your voice. This is a hospital. Chen Guang quickly gestured to her. The group of people went to the big hotel where they stayed before coming here. Jiang Yage was so sleepy that she could not take it anymore, so she went back to her room to rest. Chen Guang, Zhou Yun, Big Beard Deng, Zhou Ya, Ren Chong, Zhao Yueling, and the other main cast members who arrived later sat together for a simple meeting. Big Beard synthesizes Zhou Yun's opinion. In fact, he mainly wanted to find out Jiang Yage's attitude. After confirming that there were no problems, he was relieved. After a discussion, they decided to let the entire production crew rest at the hotel in the scenic area for a day. No one would go out for the time being. They would observe the situation and take it as a rest. They would decide if the production crew could return to work the day after tomorrow. Shilu might not be able to recover, but she was only a stunt double after all. Her absence would not affect the overall situation. All right, this incident is over without any mishaps. If there's nothing else from the day after tomorrow, let's finish all the scenes in one go. Big Beard forcefully raised his spirits and encouraged the others. The other main cast members were also energized. Guang did not express any opinions throughout. Looking at Big Beard and the others who were in high spirits, he could not help but envy them. They did not know how many people had died in the mountains. The situation this time was special. Perhaps the entire Baishui County military and police who had been at the scene would be ordered to keep their mouths shut. The official explanation given to Big Beard was also very interesting. The hostage-taker, Bao and Song, found his conscience under persuasion and took the initiative to return the hostages intact. Tong Yuan Corporation's chairman, Bao Fa Kai, also took the initiative to explain the problem. Currently, they had entered the stage of investigating other cases. The hostage kidnapping incident was considered to have come to an end. The official explanation was very reasonable. Big Beard Deng could only believe it even if he did not want to. Naturally, this was what he told the others as well. As for the only 3 people in the production crew who knew about the incident, Chun Guang, Jiang Yage, and Shi Lu, they would not say anything. Therefore, it was precisely because they did not know anything that they were fearless. Chun Guang envied their fearlessness because they were ignorant. Of course, continuing to film was also his own idea, so he did not expose them. As the saying went, when the entire Baishui officialdom was uprooted the day after tomorrow, he would not have to worry about the Bao father and son having any loyal underlings outside. If one doesn't look out for oneself, heaven and earth will destroy them. To avenge the old master who had already met the king of hell, and the target of revenge was this country, this was simply a multiple-choice question. If they could not uproot the entire Baishui corruption, even with old Master Jiang behind the scenes, then all Chun Guang could say was, "I look down on you people in power too much." He did not have the time to worry about others. In fact, he did not have the ability to pray for the world. Although Lioli's words were useless, they were not unreasonable. Now that things had come to this, he had no other choice but to resign himself to fate. Instead of worrying about a disaster that had yet to happen but could not be stopped, he might as well eat and sleep as he should. When the world really fell, he would be able to find the problem and think of a way to solve it. Although his iron fist was invincible, he did not know where the enemy was at all. It was not like he could rush to the roof and roar at the sky, then punch through the air and kill all the potential mutant creatures in the world, right? Therefore, what was done, and life still had to go on. The show still had to be filmed, and the money still had to be earned. The more disaster was imminent, the more he could not be in a mess. He should cherish the present and do what was in front of him. He should build a few more statues as soon as possible and think of ways to accumulate more faith points. Of course, it was not that Chun Guang did not plan to do anything. He had thought of buying more houses in the villa area near the school. It did not matter if he was bluffing or forcing them. In short, he had to think of a way to bring his family to Wujing. If something really happened, he had to save his own people first. Also, he had to warn those who were on good terms with him one by one. If he could get all of them to come to his side, he should not let them go. Of course, he could not tell them in detail. Even if he did, others might not believe him. It was better to scare them. However, things like mutant creatures were hard to guard against. For example, if Lu Fei listened to his suggestion and arranged 100 bodyguards at home, but once the mutation started, dozens of crazy mutants would jump out of the bodyguards. Wouldn't that be harming her instead? Other than taking one step at a time, what else could he do? With these chaotic thoughts in his mind, Chun Guang couldn't sleep tonight. He breathed in the air in the room, but his mind could not get rid of the feeling that what he breathed in was the power of the Holy Grail. Other than oxygen and carbon dioxide, there was also elemental power that was exchanging with his blood. He thought a song by Wang Liham changed the world. If he was not tone deaf, he would really want to close the door and sing a song. For hours later, the sky outside was just beginning to brighten, and the rumbling sound of cars could be heard from the street outside. Chun Guang got up and stood in front of the window to look. A long line of cars was driving past on the street below. Old Master Zhang's methods came faster than he had imagined, and it was indeed like a thunderbolt. This day was destined to be an extraordinary day for the entire Baishui County. Many people were still asleep when they were suddenly shackled by the military and police who barged in and took them to the cars. Among these people were the fat old Shun from the Scenic Area Police Station, Song Liangji from the county branch, and many others from different departments. There were also several other senior executives of the Tangyuan Group and their relatives. Even some people who had more or less done business with the Tangyuan Group over the years were not spared. Not only that, even some of the people in the city who had deep collusion with the Baishui gang were detained at almost the same time. Some of them already had more solid evidence, and some were still in the process of collecting evidence. But since they had decided to make a move, of course they would rather arrest the wrong person than let them go. They would first arrest and interrogate them, and at the same time collect evidence. If they were proven innocent in the end, they would be released and restored to their positions. If they were found to be dirty, then sorry, their political career would be over, and based on the facts of their crimes, depending on the seriousness of the circumstances, they would have to spend how long in prison. In short, once there was a problem, they would be dealt with severely and would not be lenient. Many people had been unlucky because of this matter. Such a large-scale arrest had been rare in recent years. If they had to blame someone, they could only blame the people in Baishui County. They felt that the sky was high and the emperor was far away. They had lost themselves in money and power and were so bold that it was frightening. Of course, they were also unlucky enough. If they hadn't run into the hands of Chen Guang and Jiang Yage, they wouldn't have been wiped out. It could only be said that Heaven's Net had a long way to go. They had been doing evil for decades, and finally retribution had come. Some things were like this. Before the lid was lifted, no one knew how smelly it was underneath. But once the table is flipped, then every sin you have committed in the past will be slowly investigated by others and turned into a sharp blade of punishment that will slice off your flesh piece by piece. People who had done all kinds of evil always had fear in their hearts. If they were lucky, they might be able to live a peaceful life. After death, everything would be for naught, and it wouldn't matter even if their graves were dug up. The unlucky ones were probably the same as the Bao father and son and the people in Baishui County. What awaited them was a thunderous method and an unpredictable heavenly might that descended from the sky. They would not reason with you and would punish you whenever they wanted. Even the entire Kainan province was silent out of fear. At this time, whoever dared to stand up and plead for the people in Baishui at this juncture would be courting death. At 8:30 in the morning, Central TV Department 1's Morning News was the first to broadcast the Baishui case, officially setting the case in stone. In the evening, the news broadcast listed a long and shocking list, and more detailed information was directly published on the websites of several major official mouthpieces in the country. Chapter 994. Big Beard Deng, who was reviewing the script with a few of the main cast members and browsing the web on his tablet from time to time, felt his eyelids twitching. Terrible. It's really terrible. It's really a one-pot kill. As he spoke, he secretly looked at Jiang Yage, whose face was blushing as she scribbled on the script. She was not listening to him at all. Big Beard thought of the countless military and police officers that had been scurrying around the entire Baishui County today, and he was also a little frightened. The power of heaven was vast and mighty, and the mortals suffered. This whole incident was really too thorough. There were about 50 to 60 people listed on the list, but in fact there were at least 15 cars that had been captured outside the hotel and taken away. There were at least 10 people in each car. Chen Guang stretched and said indifferently, "This is karma. If people don't do bad things, they won't suffer the wrath of the heavens. Don't you think so, uncle?" Big Beard Deng pursed his lips and finally couldn't help saying, "That's the logic." He didn't continue. There were thousands of evil people in the world, but not everyone would provoke Jiang Yage, and not everyone would be unlucky. However, he knew that although he had a high status in the entertainment industry, he was still a relatively high-level actor. This kind of inside and outside of the imperial city was not something he should care about, let alone comment on. He gathered his thoughts again and tilted his head to look at Jiang Yage. He looked up to see what she was scribbling on the script, and then he was shocked. My missy, don't add any more sex scenes. You wrote so much, I don't dare to do it. Don't get me into trouble. Jiang Yage's face turned even redder, and she put the script in her arms. I just wrote it for fun. I don't need you to peek at it. Big Beard felt a little stifled. The female lead changed the script, and he, as the director, didn't let her see it. Why was he so bitter? Chen Guang snatched the script from Jiang Yage's arms and looked at it. Then his eyes widened. Oh my God, your scale is too big. I don't even dare to read it out loud. I'm afraid that the ninth heaven Xian thunder will descend from the sky and strike us into ashes. It's not as incredible as you make it sound. Jiang Yage refused to comply. Chen Guang said mysteriously, You still don't believe in the matters of immortals? If you don't believe in God and Buddha, you will eventually suffer a great loss. Jiang Yage stared blankly at Chen Guang's face for a long time before saying, I believe you. Chen Guang raised his hand and pointed to the sky. That's right. These things happen when you believe in them. Although a gentleman doesn't talk about strange powers and gods, there are gods 3 feet above us. Jiang Yage stepped on his foot. Speak properly. You become so strange today. Chen Guang leaned back. That's because I have something on my mind. If there weren't outsiders around, Jiang Yage really wanted to pinch his hand and comfort him not to care about what happened yesterday. The next morning, the crew set off from the hotel again to shoot the remaining 2 scenes at the Great Waterfall. When they got out of the car, everyone felt that the air had become especially fresh. Lu didn't follow them. Instead, she rested in the hotel. She was a little unwilling to give up and try to get into shape. However, the performance that she put on by forcing herself to put on couldn't be appreciated by others. In the end, she could only give up. Before they knew it, more than a month had passed in the blink of an eye. The entire crew traveled all over the country, flying up and down to 7 or 8 places in the country. They even made a trip to Europe. When Big Beard Deng finally announced that the exterior scenes were done, everyone let out a long sigh of relief. They were finally free. During this period of time, Chen Guang followed the crew up and down, but he didn't stay idle. He really took out 50 million yuan from the Tianguang Group's cash and bought 7 villas in one go in the newly developed villa district near the school. While he was handling the money, he thought of the 170 million yuan that he had lost. He thought that Lu Li had calmed down, so he hurriedly entered the cup world, intending to ask her. However, before he could say anything, he was beaten up again. This time, he tried to resist, but Lu Ming used leaves to tie him up like a dumpling and hung him in the air. He didn't get to ask anything, and he was beaten up for nothing, which made him extremely angry. Chen Guang still didn't know that after he left the cup world, Lu Li and Lu Ming also heaved a long sigh of relief. Lu Li patted her chest. We finally got away with it. I was so nervous. Lu Ming also shook his fruit. Yeah, it was really dangerous. If he found out that the money was wasted, then Sister Lu Li, it would be really embarrassing for you. If Chen Guang knew that the 2 of them had actually calmed down a long time ago and were only afraid that he would ask about the money, he would probably vomit 3 liters of blood. However, his plan to get everyone over did not succeed in the end, and it had completely failed. He had been hit in the head by his father first. Chen Guoli's reason was simple and sufficient. He and Feng Rong's friends were all in Lilai County. It was difficult to find people to play mahjong in Wujing. Now that the dust pollution in the country was serious, the PM2.5 near Wujing often went up to 400. Although your mother is recovering very well now, she is still a person who has had a kidney transplant. If she breathes in too much dust, it will be too much pressure on the immune system. If the illness recurs, it will be terrible. Chen Guang said that I will put 2 air purifiers in a room, and Chen Guoli said that you want me and your mother to go to jail. Won't go out for the rest of my life. Well, in short, this matter was over. Even his parents couldn't pull him, let alone other relatives and friends. However, Chen Guang couldn't tell them what he was worried about. What could he say? The end of the world is coming. I met an elemental wolf that can spit fireballs and shoot ice needles. The people in this world are starting to mutate. Maybe the mosquitoes in the house will mutate. What he said was the truth, but Chen Guang felt that he might be ruthlessly sent to a mental hospital by his father. So in the end, Chen Guang's idea was completely ruined. Even his parents were like this, let alone other people. Fortunately, except for Zhui Jingxi and Tang Ying, who were now in the United States, most of the people who were close to Chen Guang were gathered near Wujing, so the situation was not as bad as it seemed. As long as there was a car around, if something really happened, he would be able to rush over immediately. But if a stray dog or cat suddenly changed and was slashed by the neck, it would be futile even if Chen Guang brought everyone to the 5 capitals. After all, it was impossible for Chen Guang to watch over them 24/7. Just like Chen Guoli, although he didn't know what happened, he could hear Chen Guang's worry. However, he didn't take it seriously and comforted him. Don't scare yourself all day long. Even if you're really unlucky, don't some people choke to death when drinking water? As a person, you have to believe in fate. Chen Guang could only pinch his nose and accept it. In the past few days, although he relied on the acting skills of the world-class best actor to smoothly survive, he didn't have an easy time. During this time, the first thing he did after opening his eyes was to run to the window and look outside. Then he took out his phone and quickly read the news on the internet. Then he would run to find someone to chat with. In particular, he couldn't let go of any pets he saw in front of him. He talked about life with the hotel's gatekeeper, talked about ideals with the husky who went out early in the morning and was left by its owner, or compared reactions with the British Shorthair who passed by with a beautiful girl who lived in the same hotel. He was about to tire himself out. If it weren't for the fact that he had experienced many storms and had a strong psychological endurance, he felt that he would have almost had a nervous breakdown. The purpose of doing these things was also very simple. He was afraid that when he woke up, the world would no longer be the same as it was before. Every time he got a definite answer, he felt as if he had survived a disaster and had another day of peace. In the eyes of those who didn't know, the sun would rise as usual every day. But in his eyes, maybe the sun would disappear one day and the moon would become 2. Who knew? Unfortunately, he couldn't tell anyone about this. He could only bear the pressure by himself. This situation exhausted a great deal of his energy, but it wasn't as if Chen Guang didn't accomplish anything in the past month. On Tianguang Media's side, hi, my God. This new variety show had already started recording smoothly. Chu Zijin led the team and fumbled around. Fortunately, with the help of mature teams sent by Xiaotsong, they smoothly recorded the first 4 episodes. The online copyright was directly given to Xiaotsong's Bamboo platform. Seeing that he had given people away and supported the 30 million for publicity, they didn't take a single cent from the licensing fee. As for the licensing of the television station, after many investigations, they finally decided on Jiangnan Province's Department 1, which was relatively strong in variety shows among the provincial satellite TV stations in the country. It was also known as Jiangnan Satellite TV, which was jokingly called Chili TV. The broadcast time had also been set. It was set for the middle of next month. It would be broadcast once a week. It was prepared to take over the prime time slot on Friday night. However, the contract signed between the company and the television station was more complicated. It wasn't just a simple licensing broadcast. The relationship between the production company and the television station complemented each other. If the same program was broadcast on Chili TV, Mango TV, or Tomato TV, it would receive much more attention than on a weak provincial TV station like Dachuan Satellite TV. The amount of money paid by the title sponsor and the special advertising sponsor was also very different. If a program with a rating of more than 2% was broadcast on Chili TV, the title sponsorship fee would go up to 100 million. If it was broadcast on Dachuan Satellite TV, they would be stupid to give it 50 million. In addition, the television station said that they would pay the licensing fee to Tianguang Media. However, they couldn't ask the television station to give you a primetime slot and make you pay for it, right? A primetime slot was an investment worth tens of millions. Therefore, the television station definitely had to take a share of the advertising sponsorship. As the program producer, most of the money that Tianguang Media could earn came from the advertising sponsorship. The other half came from other aspects of copyright expansion, such as the licensing fee for on-demand broadcasting on video websites, and so on. If they had artistes under them, of course, they could also send them to their own program to familiarize themselves and make their own artistes popular. That was also a cash cow and could be considered a profit. Also, if this program achieved unprecedented success in the country, or if foreign companies recognized this model, the future copyright export would be another story. Chapter 995. After finalizing the television station, schedule, and sponsors according to the contract signed by Chu Zijin and Chili Pepper TV, the basic title sponsorship fee was 100 million, and the 3 special sponsorship fees totaled 60 million, of which 60 million would be given to Chili Pepper TV. Chili Pepper TV bought high. My God. The first season's copyright licensing fee was 40 million. Including the video website's licensing fee and on-demand share, it was estimated to be less than 40 million. Deducting the share to Chili Pepper TV, Tianguang Media's basic income was about 180 million. However, the entire program's production and publicity costs were calculated to be about 180 million. This included the rental of the venue, the construction of the stage equipment, the appearance fees of the celebrity artists, the travel and accommodation fees of the contestants, and various other coordination fees. On the surface, Tianguang Media might be able to break even after completing the entire project, with no profit or loss. As for exporting the copyright overseas in the future, it was something that could only be chanced upon and could not be considered a stable income. On the other hand, Chili Pepper TV was guaranteed to earn 20 million. Of course, doing business was not charity. Risks and benefits coexisted. What was mentioned before was the basic income, but if the program's ratings exceeded expectations, the various income would rise steadily. For example, if the average ratings reached 2%, it would be a guarantee. If the ratings reached between 2% and 5%, the sponsorship fee would increase by 10%. Chili Pepper TV's advertising fee would also increase by 10%, and the copyright licensing fee would increase by 5%. In the terms of the contract, if the national ratings exceeded 5% and the national online viewership and topic share exceeded 15%, the sponsorship fee would be doubled, and Chili Pepper TV's copyright licensing fee would also increase by 50%. At that time, even if they had to pay more to Chili Pepper TV, the overall plate would be bigger, and the profits that Tianguang Media could earn would be extremely impressive. At that time, what awaited Tianguang Media would be at least 200 million in net profit, as well as the expected income from overseas authorizations. Although Chu Zijin had just entered the industry, she had not let down Chen Guang's trust in her to be able to perfect such a business model in such a short time. The first season of the program had a total of 8 episodes, and they were only recording 4 of them. They were waiting for the first and second episodes to be aired on the satellite to observe the specific effects, and then they could make changes to the content of the next 4 episodes. Of course, the people with special abilities that could be found at the moment could only last for 4 episodes. In fact, it was not that they could not shoot, but if they really shot it according to Jiang Ye's script, he was afraid that the old men in Yanjing would catch them on the spot for a wedding. Big Beard also pinched his fingers. Today is not an auspicious day for shooting, so it is not suitable to go out. It is better to stay at home. The 2 struggle did not have any effect, and the next morning, the rest of the crew was dragged to Wujing Film City. Rin Chong, Zhao Yueling, Zhou Ye, and the rest of the lead actors had already left the crew, and the next time they met would probably be when the film was edited and the cinema release was scheduled. Chen Guang pressed the makeup artist on the chair to touch up her makeup, and from time to time, he would secretly look at Jiang Ye and Jin Shuriwei, who were also putting on makeup, and he could not help but feel a little strange. The stupid script written by Jiang Ye was rejected in the end. After his argument with Big Beard, They cut off the scenes that could not be shown on the big screen and compressed the crazy 180 seconds into 15 seconds. Stop joking. People would be scolded for being immoral if they spent dozens of dollars to enter the cinema with a close-up kissing scene for 3 minutes. So, it was not that the kissing scene could not be filmed, but at least it had to be done normally. His fight had also achieved some results, so it was not difficult to accept. But now, Chen Guang still could not relax, because he had never thought of shooting the kissing scene of Jin Shuriwei and Jiang Yage at the same time on the same day. In the movie, Jin Shuriwei played the role of his dead ex-girlfriend, and Jiang Yage played the role of Chen Guang's little fan who inspired him to fight again when he was middle-aged. The two characters appeared in the movie more than 10 years apart, and even in the movie, one of the scenes was at the beginning and the other at the end, so it did not feel out of place when it was filmed. But Chen Guang did not expect that when it came to the actual filming, things would rush and people would chase people away. Unknowingly, it had become a kissing scene with both of them on the same day. This was their first kiss on screen. Although it was quite enviable to think about, it was actually very stressful and not happy at all. Instead, it was super awkward. If this kind of thing were to spread, wouldn't I be hacked to death? In addition, although there were not many people in the crew at this time, at least half of the people in the crew had left. But the rest of the guys might also be making up stories about me in their minds. Chen Guang turned his head and glanced at Yang Shi, who was secretly looking at him. Sure enough, even this guy had a meaningful smile on his face, let alone the others. Do you think I enjoy it? This is simply charaba, okay. Not knowing what Jin Shuriwei and Jiang Yage were thinking at this time, Chen Guang pricked up his ears again and eavesdropped on their whispers. He thought that if Jin Shuriwei felt embarrassed, then he would only shoot one scene today and shoot the kissing scene with another person tomorrow. Although the old man had invincible acting skills, the old man was not ready to sacrifice for art. He could only drag it out for one day. Yage, when I kiss him later, do you think he will stick his tongue out? Sister Shuriwei, don't worry. No. Jin Shuriwei's tone was a little disappointed, but also a little relieved. No. With his temper, he definitely will. Then what should I do? I'm so embarrassed. I'm a little embarrassed. Jiang Yage patted Jin Shuriwei's shoulder. Sister Shuriwei, don't worry. Don't look at how scared you are now. When you give him a hug later, I guarantee that your mind will be blank. At that time, you just need to act as yourself. Big Beard will definitely not say anything. Even if you ask him to say NG, he won't dare. Jin Shuriwei was relieved, then looked at Jiang Yage again. She wanted to say something, but hesitated. That's good, but you... Jiang Yage understood. She knew that Sister Shuriwei was a little embarrassed that she was shooting with Chen Guang first today, and then it was her turn later. Sister Shuriwei, what are you thinking? Didn't we never share the cup when we drink together? Jin Shuriwei suddenly realized. It seems so. But don't be too proud, I'll say the ugly words first. Anyway, I've made up my mind. When I shoot my scene later, I will deliberately NG 17 or 18 times. You're the one who is thin-skinned, so don't blame me for being ruthless. Jin Shuriwei made a gesture to pinch Jiang Yage's waist. You, so sinister. Sorry for my rudeness. No, I want to NG too. Chen Guang decisively withdrew his power. He really couldn't listen anymore. His mind began to imagine the scene later. Big Beard was hysterically yelling NGs. Then he gave the two of them a variety of fancy NGs from all sorts of angles, and then took advantage of them. He silently flicked his hair. Too handsome, too charming is also a great trouble. As he turned his head, he saw a group of people walking over from the other side of the set. In the lead was a handsome young man in a white suit. Chapter 996. The man in the white suit was none other than his old acquaintance, Bai Hua. The people around him were all big-bellied and imposing. They were clearly the bosses of various companies. Even so, Bai Hua stood proudly in the crowd, like a crane among chickens. His imposing manner completely overwhelmed everyone else. He truly lived up to his reputation as the first young master of the third generation. Chen Guang's eyes widened. What the hell? Why is Brother Bai Hua here at this time? Are you here to mess with me? Bai Hua saw Chen Guang from afar and decisively walked out of the crowd. The others hurriedly followed behind him. Among this group of people, Chen Guang also saw a few old acquaintances, including Lu Chao from Lushur culture, Wang Qing's father, Wang Guoxiong, and the big boss of the five capital underworld, Fourth Master Yin. At this time, all the big bosses' faces were filled with joy. Chen Guang remembered that Bai Hua had previously come to Dechuan province on behalf of Tianyi Energy to discuss a new energy project that would invest tens of billions of yuan. It seemed that the matter would be finalized in a few months. Chen Guang, I've asked around and found out that you're filming here today. Since I'm already nearby, I thought that I might as well pay you a visit. Chairman Liu and the rest also wanted to come over and greet you. I hope I didn't disturb you, right? Bai Hua walked closer and asked with a smile. Chen Guang thought, you're already here, what else can I say? Even if someone really has an opinion, it should be Big Beard Dang's problem, not me. He could only casually wave his hand. It's fine. Bai Hua acted as if he was very familiar with them. He turned around and asked the big bosses to sit down. Big Beard Dang also recognized Bai Hua and the people behind him. He hurriedly came over to say hello and then quickly ran away. Bai Hua waved at Jin Shuriwei and Jiang Yage, who were putting on makeup on the other side of the room. He then turned around and asked Chen Guang curiously, I heard that you guys are almost done. What scenes are you shooting today? Is it okay for us to watch? I know that your acting skills have already reached the pinnacle. You won't be affected, right? Chen Guang shrugged. It doesn't affect me at all. As for today's scene, he swallowed his saliva, then looked at the other bosses like Lu Chao, who were like curious babies, and sighed. We'll be shooting the kissing scene today. Bai Hua's body trembled. A kiss scene? With whom? Chen Guang's gaze turned to the two women, Jin and Jiang. His eyes were especially deep. Those two. Sure. The people who came to watch the show twitched, and the big shots also had a very unique feeling in their hearts. Their impromptu visit had actually become a historical moment. As half an insider in the entertainment industry, Lu Chao immediately began to popularize science to others. Jin Shuriwei and Jiang Yage never shoot intimate scenes. Chen Guang waved his hand. Director Liu, don't mention this matter. I'm under a lot of pressure. Lu Chao thought that Chen Guang was being modest, and instead said with a face full of envy, Director Chen, you're being too modest. You don't need to feel any pressure. Think about it. The two of them have been in the industry for so many years, and they've filmed so many scenes. Not to mention kissing scenes. Have they even held hands before? No, right? In my opinion, the only person in the entire entertainment industry who can make the two heavenly queens break through their limits and boundaries is you. That's right. If it were anyone else, would the two heavenly queens make such a sacrifice? Nonsense. How can this be called a sacrifice? This is filming. This is the art of film. What do you know? Old Liu is still the one who knows how to speak, as expected of someone in the industry. Anyway, Director Chun, do your best. I won't say much, but on behalf of my company, when your movie is released, our company will directly book the entire theater. Yo, that's a big deal. Old Li, your company has more than 30,000 employees. Are you going to do it together? Don't tell me you're bragging. The boss, who was called Old Li, waved his hand nonchalantly. How's this a big deal? My company organizes our employees to watch movies every year. Doesn't it matter who they watch? Of course, we have to watch our own people. The others also chimed in one after another. These guys were indeed shrewd people. Their words were all flattering Chen Guang, but no one expressed any envy. Everyone present was a big shot. Although they might not know the real background of Jin Shuriwei and Jiang Yage, they could roughly guess it, so they did not dare to be envious. That was why things in the world were so interesting. Big shots like Lu Chao and Wang Guoxiong were much more powerful than by Shuehe and his son from the Dan family. It was because they stood at a higher position that they could see more things, and their actions were more meaningful. However, Chen Guang did not enjoy their flattery. Instead, he could not sit still, feeling as if he was being roasted on a bonfire. Especially when Bai Hua's expression gradually changed, Chen Guang felt even more unbearable. Brother Bai wanted to say something, but hesitated. Perhaps he felt that something was wrong, but everyone here was an outsider, so it was not convenient for him to speak. Finally, when the cameras were about to start shooting, Bai Hua separated himself from the crowd and looked for Chen Guang. He asked, Chen Guang, is this okay? Chen Guang knew what he was referring to. After all, in his heart, he and Jean Shuriwe had always been lovers. Back then, he had fallen in love with Chen Yu before he was willing to completely give up on Jean Shuriwe. But today, Chen Guang had to shoot kissing scenes with two people at the same time. It was inevitable that he would not feel good. Although their relationship had changed, and it was no longer the love from before, Bai Hua did not want to see Jean Shuriwe feel wronged. How could Chen Guang tell him that not only did Jean Shuriwe not want to feel wronged, but she also wanted to learn from Jiang Yage and crazily take NGs? He had no choice but to pat Bai Hua on the shoulder. Brother Bai, don't worry. I understand. Don't think too much about it. It's just a movie. Isn't this normal for other actors? Bai Hua felt that there was something wrong with his words, but he couldn't refute him. It was not until Chen Guang walked away that he fiercely stomped his feet. Hey, I didn't think it through. I should have asked him just now. Since you said it's a movie, what would you do if Shuriwe and Grace were to shoot kissing scenes with someone else? Didn't he trick them into doing it? Jean Shuriwe was lying quietly on the hospital bed. The makeup on her face was a little pale, and she looked very pale. This was a specially decorated ward. There was a white lily on the windowsill, and the TV was playing a highlights clip of a boxing match. In the movie, the girl's life was about to come to an end. She could close her eyes at any time, never to open them again. But at this moment, her eyes were wide open as she stared at the TV screen. Congratulations. Congratulations to Chun Lei for winning the CBO championship. He's an unprecedented genius. On the TV, the young man she missed day and night was standing in a boxing ring. His eyes were swollen, and it was hard to tell whether his face was covered in blood or sweat. He raised his right hand high and grinned. Even through the screen, one could see the pride in his heart. The scene on the TV changed to a reporter interviewing the boxer, Chun Lei. Mr. Chun, what do you want to say the most at this time? On the TV, Chun Lei was facing the camera. Me? I want to tell my girlfriend, no, my wife. Wife, did you see that? I won. I'm coming home right now. Let's get married. Jean Shuriwe smiled. Her smile was exceptionally sweet, and a faint blush appeared on her pale face. Her face was filled with unparalleled happiness. Cut. Cut. Good, very good. This scene is amazing. Big Beard suddenly shouted, cut, and then checked the effects of the scene over and over again. The more he looked, the more satisfied he was. Jean Shuriwe's condition was perfect to the point of being impeccable. Originally, the bearded man was worried that it would be difficult for her to finish the entire scene in one go with this makeup, especially the last one, which was especially difficult. However, when Jean Shuriwe squeezed out that faint pink color on her face, the bearded man knew that he had it. From a monitor, the scene was even more perfect. In that instant, Jean Shuriwe's expression and the light and shadow in the ward intertwined and brightened the lifeless atmosphere. Although Big Beard was good at plot and rhythm, he was also good at using light and shadow effects. Even if it was just a small scene in a modern drama, he still used his aesthetics to the extreme. After another round of work, he immediately moved on to the next scene. The first scene was about 5 seconds of Chen Guang breaking the door and Jean Shuriwe looking at the door in a daze for about 8 seconds. The scene quickly changed to Chen Guang rushing forward and hugging her. Why? Why didn't you tell me earlier? Why? I didn't want to disturb your training. I wanted to see you in the championship. Didn't I win the championship for you? If you had told me earlier, I would have taken you to the hospital earlier. It's useless, it's useless. This is a terminal illness. Impossible. I won't admit it. It's only been half a year. There's still hope. Chen Guang bent down and hugged Jean Shuriwe tightly. His eyes were so gentle that it could melt glaciers. Jean Shuriwe's breathing gradually became heavy. She hugged Chen Guang tightly. Don't do this. Kiss me. Why? Because I want to. With that, Jean Shuriwe hugged Chen Guang tightly and kissed him. Big Beard waved his hand, and the camera quickly moved forward. Finally, after 10 seconds, Big Beard let out a long breath. Cut. Perfect. Jean Shuriwe opened her eyes and let go of him. She only came back to her senses now. That's it. What did I just do? Why can't I remember anything? Did I lose my memory? There was no problem with my acting just now. There was no NG. How did I pass in one take? Jean Shuriwea was a little unhappy. It was such a rare opportunity, but her mind was in a daze. She didn't know anything. She got down from the hospital bed with a thick hospital gown and ran to the monitor with a red face. She checked the effects of the camera with Chun Guang and Big Beard. Only then did she see how she acted. She understood at once. Although she was unconscious at that time, she was brought into the scene by Chun Guang. At that time, she was his first love. She didn't need to think much. She just needed to give her all for the last kiss. The next time she appeared, it would be a funeral photo. Shuriwea, your acting is getting better. At this time, Bai Hua also came over and praised her. Although Bai Hua no longer liked Jean Shuriwea, seeing such a loving kiss scene, even if it hadn't gone through post-production, still made his heart ache. May all the lovers in the world be together, but he was still waiting for the flower in the mirror and the moon in the water. He didn't even know when it would end. After being praised by Bai Hua, Jean Shuriwea felt embarrassed. She stole a glance at Chun Guang, then blushed and ran to the dressing room to remove her makeup. Chun Guang watched from the side for a while, then went to remove her makeup as well. Big Beard and Jiang Yage started to reshoot a few scenes that Chun Guang felt were unsatisfactory before he came to the set. Lu Chao and the others surrounded Bai Hua, keeping a distance from the crew and chatting with one another. President Chun is really a happy winner in life. That's right. Although they said on Weibo that there's nothing between them, I think there's definitely a problem. The way they looked at me just now was amazing. Even I, who doesn't watch movies much, was moved to tears when I knew they were filming. If I didn't treat them as my other half in my heart, wouldn't the acting be too realistic? But there's still a scene with Jiang Yage later. All right, President Chun is doing his middle-aged makeup right now, right? Yes. Such a complicated makeup. To change his age will probably take an hour or so. I still have a meeting at the company, so I'll take my leave first. Me too. After all, this group of big shots were busy people. They had already given Chun Guang enough face by following Bai Hua over to greet him. With too many people here, it was hard to guarantee that Chun Guang wouldn't feel awkward. Therefore, everyone found an excuse to leave, leaving only Bai Hua, who had nothing else to do today, to stay. Of course, when the big shots left, they couldn't help but feel regretful that they didn't get to see Chun Guang kiss the two heavenly queens in a row. This was also the reason why they left at the last minute. They were really afraid that Chun Guang and Jiang Yage's kissing scene would be so perfect. If that happened, how would they flatter him? It wouldn't be a good thing if they accidentally saw a love triangle between the rich and the powerful. They thought about how some of their descendants were addicted to these two little girls, and then thought about how they could use filming to get close to Chun Guang. They couldn't help but feel heartache for their juniors. Compared to ordinary people, their juniors might be envied as second-generation rich kids. But compared to Chun Guang, their second-generation rich kids were really embarrassing. Little Chun was really amazing. In just half a year, he had gone from being an ordinary student to the top. Even young Master Bai from Yanjing, who came to Wujing, specially came to greet him. With this kind of treatment and status, it wouldn't be wrong to say that he was the #1 young master in China. Unfortunately, he didn't have any background. If his good-for-nothing sons had 1/10 of his ability, it would be enough to comfort his old heart. About 3 hours later, at about 4:00 in the afternoon, the second kiss scene officially began. Because this was the last part of the boxing match, the props had to be completely restored to the previous scenes. As for the extras, they didn't have to worry too much. It would be fine as long as the extras were glued to the extras in the post-production. In addition, some of the main audience members who had lines and close-ups also came to the set today. Bai Hua stood far beside Big Beard and looked at the monitor with him. When he saw Chun Guang kissing Jiang Yage again and Jiang Yage crying tears of happiness, he also unknowingly teared up. He didn't know that even though he was separated by more than 20 meters, he was still dragged into the world of acting by Chun Guang. At this time, his mind was turning over and over again, and all he could think about was the tall girl who he bitterly loved but didn't respond to. The love in the movie is so happy, But why is my life so bitter? Bai Hua silently turned his face away, not wanting to let others see his tears. He really wanted to drink a glass of wine and then forget everything. Chapter 997. Cut. Okay. Perfect. We're really done this time. Bai Hua was lost in thought when Big Beard Deng, who was sitting next to him, suddenly shouted. He stood up from his chair with a face full of excitement, waving his hands and feet. Bai Hua was shocked. He looked at Big Beard's back. Even though he couldn't see his face, he could feel the excitement and vigor coming from him. He didn't look like an old man in his 50s at all. On the big set, the other crew members also raised their arms and cheered. For many people in the crew, the months-long filming had finally come to an end. Although it was faster than they had imagined, when the dust finally settled, they still felt a sense of satisfaction, as if the long journey had finally come to an end. This was also a kind of relief. Chen Guang was still lying on the edge of the boxing ring, his head hanging in the air. Jiang Yage supported his head from below, still crying. She desperately moved her mouth closer to Chen Guang's. Not only that, but her tongue was also desperately moving forward. When she was chatting with Jin Shuriwei, she had put it nicely. The two of them were still wondering if Chen Guang would stick his tongue out. Previously, when Chen Guang and Jin Shuriwei were filming, it was Jin Shuriwei who was completely pulled into the scene and took the initiative to attack. Now, it was Jiang Yage who was also pulled into the scene, because she was playing the role of a particularly active and youthful, beautiful girl fan. Her performance was even more aggressive than Jin Shuriwei's. From the start of the scene, she wanted to rub Chen Guang's neck into her body. Her tongue was like an electric drill, straight into his body. At that time, Chen Guang didn't avoid it. As the world's best actor, he brought others into the scene, and he himself was also in the scene. But now that Big Beard had clearly shouted, "Cut!" and the others had already started cheering, Chen Guang had instantly broken away from his acting, but Jiang Yage was still immersed in it. Imagine the scene at this moment. The others were raising their arms and cheering, flying hats, and congratulating each other in various ways. But he and Jiang Yage were still kissing nonstop. It was really quite awkward. He tried to speak, but this woman was too unreserved. "Do you want me to eat your tongue?" He couldn't speak, afraid that she would accidentally bite him. At this moment, Chen Guang wanted to push her away, but he was in an awkward position. So when he forcefully pushed his head up, he ended up landing on her chest instead. Although when there was no one around, not to mention touching it, it wouldn't be a problem even if he held it in his hands and molded it into all sorts of shapes. But now they were in public. There were so many people, especially Brother Bai, who was watching. In Bai Hua's heart, he and Jin Shuriwei were the ones who had that kind of relationship. If he acted too intimately with Jiang Yage in front of him, it would seem like he was letting her down. Chen Guang knew that his thoughts were quite shameless. So other than this kissing scene, he had been trying very hard to keep his distance from Jin Shuriwei. But just from Jin Shuriwei's kiss, which was almost like her acting, Chen Guang knew that his efforts were probably in vain. The hardest thing to manipulate was the human heart. The tree may desire peace, but the wind will not subside. He had even said something as heartless as breaking up. So how could he push Jin Shuriwei away? What made him even more distressed was that this matter would actually be better handled by Jiang Yage. But it was obvious that Jiang Yage didn't want to have a showdown with Jin Shuriwei. She hid the fact that the two of them had already had a relationship from Jin Shuriwei and even gave Jin Shuriwei advice. Chen Guang was speechless. He didn't know what the obsessed Jiang Yage was thinking. Bai Hua was still sitting in the same place. The cameraman left the camera and went to celebrate. He didn't turn off the power. At this time, he was still looking at the two of them kissing passionately. He had never acted before, so he didn't know how to evaluate the current situation. But he had already found an explanation for the two of them. He heard that really good actors had a process of getting into and out of character. Maybe the two of them were too immersed in character and couldn't come out of it for a while. Although Bai Hua hadn't read the script, he could feel the sincerity of the two characters. The more he thought about it, the more envious he was. The happier the others on the set were, the lonelier he felt. Finally, the set gradually quieted down. They couldn't be excited for long. What awaited Big Beard Dang and the other directors was the next step of the special effects and editing work. They still had a lot of work to do. One after another, people noticed that Chun Guang and Jiang Yage were still kissing. Many of them pinched their fingers and counted. It had been about 4 to 5 minutes, right? Aren't you guys a little too much showing off your affection in and out of the show? Chun Guang was really embarrassed. He secretly reached out to scratch Jiang Yage's armpit. Ha! Jiang Yage couldn't hold it anymore. She giggled and stepped back. She said unhappily, "What are you doing? Be more serious when you're filming. Don't disturb me." Chun Guang shrank back into the middle of the boxing ring and then stood up straight. "You still have a cheek to say that to me? We've already finished filming. Okay. It's completely finished." Jiang Yage was stunned. "How is that possible? We just kissed. It was at most 5 seconds." Chun Guang really didn't want to talk to her. "Thank you, it's been 5 minutes." Jiang Yage exclaimed, "Ah, it can't be right. Where did all the time go?" Chun Guang shrugged. "I haven't even had the chance to enjoy my youth, and I'm already old." Big Beard and the other main cast members couldn't help but laugh. They all thought that Jiang Yage was completely immersed in her character. She even bumped into the joke of 10,000 years in a blink of an eye. At this moment, Jin Shuriwei, who was extremely envious of Jiang Yage, also walked up and patted her on the shoulder. "All right, the movie is really finished this time. Go and remove your makeup." Jiang Yage quietly helped Jin Shuriwei up and looked in Chun Guang's direction reluctantly. She said to Jin Shuriwei in a low voice, "I haven't even NG yet. It's only been one shot. I can't take it lying down." "I didn't either." "That's true." Chun Guang also cupped his hands in greeting to everyone. He had intended to remove his makeup, but he saw that the main cast members were all staring at him. He didn't know what he was thinking, but his brain worked for a moment. He said casually, "It's rare for the movie to be finished. Uncle, don't work tonight. Why don't we all find a place in Wujing for a meal? It can be considered a celebration." Deng Xiaojiang was stunned at first, but he immediately reacted. He thought to himself that this kid had really changed a lot in the past few months. He had matured and become more stable. He didn't even need me to remind him. He had taken the initiative to treat the entire crew to a meal to celebrate. He was no longer the willful college student who did things his own way, but the real boss Chun who had the demeanor of a general. Of course you have to treat. You are the biggest investor of the movie. For many people in the crew, a treat from someone else might be a social event that they didn't want to waste their time on. But for the #1 internet celebrity in China, the boss of the movie investment company, and the person who had led the entire cast and crew to great heights in the past 2 months, it was naturally a big deal. There was another round of joyous noise on the set. Chun Guang saw that everyone was happy, and he was also happy. He greeted Bai Hua. "Brother Bai, since you are here, don't leave tonight. Let's go eat together." Bai Hua subconsciously wanted to refuse, but before he could say anything, Chun Guang turned around and went to the makeup room. "Sai, forget it. He has already invited me. If I don't go, it'll be a little disrespectful." Bai Hua didn't know how to describe his feelings at the moment. Everyone else was so happy, but his heart was heavy. He couldn't feel happy. He also knew that this wasn't good, but he couldn't control his feelings. Forget it. He would just find an excuse to leave when he came out later. But it was rare for him to come here, so he had to ask Chun Guang about Chunyu. He was really unwilling to just leave like this. While he was worrying about his gains and losses, Bai Hua finally followed the crew to the most famous place in Wujing City, Everyday Fishing Bay. When the 2 buses, 4 MPVs, and Chun Guang's Passat stopped together, it was already 8 o'clock at night. However, the staff of Everyday Fishing Bay, who had received the call, had already lined up in a long line at the entrance. A red carpet led from the entrance to the hall inside, stretching for more than 100 meters. An eye-catching red banner was hung at the entrance of the hall. It read, "A warm welcome to the crew of Women for Dinner at Everyday Fishing Bay. May women do well at the box office." From the time old Ma, the floor manager, made the call to reserve seats to the boss of Everyday Fishing Bay, it took less than 2 hours. The respect expressed by the boss was evident. This old restaurant, which had a history of decades, was known as the best fish in Wujing. In addition to the authentic taste and great reputation, Chen Guang chose this restaurant for another purpose. This restaurant was located in Shuanghe County, a suburb of Wujing, which happened to be very close to the campus of Gokyo University in Shuanghe. After dinner, he could easily stroll back to school by himself and call Lin Jingwei and the others to have a sumptuous meal. Chen Guang, who was walking at the front, cupped his hands to greet others and marveled in his heart. He didn't expect that he would receive such treatment just by leading a team to have a meal. Things are different now. In the past, in order to have a sumptuous meal here, everyone in the dorm had to reserve seats at least a month in advance. After paying the bill, they had to pinch their fingers and count how many steam buns they would have to eat for the next month. He had mixed feelings. No wonder so many people were after fame and power. People living at the top of the pyramid were much more convenient than ordinary people. Even if it was just a small meal, they could enjoy benefits that ordinary people couldn't imagine. He called a few of his buddies in the dorm. He wanted to call Gao Ye and Sun Xiaoxuan, but in the end, only Lin Jingwei came. Xiong'er and Bai Fan invited someone to play basketball, while Gao Ye and Sun Xiaoxuan were busy with the student council. I think Sun doesn't want to come. After everyone was settled, Chen Guang went downstairs alone to wait for Lin Jingwei, which was what he said the moment he arrived. Chen Guang couldn't do anything about it. I didn't think it through. You're tuning in to the Dreamy Chapters YouTube channel. We're so grateful for your support, and don't forget to subscribe to join us on this incredible journey through captivating stories. Your generosity through donations truly makes a world of difference, as it's the primary source of revenue that allows me to expand and enhance this channel for you. Thank you from the bottom of my heart for being a part of this adventure.